We're now on day 30 of the government shutdown. Is an end in sight, or will it drag on until the pain is too much even for the GOP to bear? We'll talk to Chuck about it.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll open the lines to get your thoughts on the affordability crisis in Massachusetts. While the stock market exchanges log record profits and wealth of the top 1% keeps growing, the middle and working class is rationing resources, not having kids, barely affording housing or health care. How do we get out of this mess? And how are you holding it all together? Call or text next, 11 o'clock hour, BPR, GBH, and EPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is flying back to Washington after his meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The two leaders did not reach a deal on trade issues, but NPR's Emily Fang reports some critical issues have been paused.
China's most devastating threat, a near total export ban on products containing rare earth materials the U.S. cannot make itself, has now been paused, and Xi Jinping agreed China will again buy U.S. soybeans. Despite fears that China would push the U.S. to say something on Taiwan, Trump said the topic never came up. China wants to control the democratic island that Beijing claims is theirs. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer weighed in on another heated point of contention, and that is China's desire to buy powerful NVIDIA semiconductor chips that are crucial to some artificial intelligence capabilities. Greer said it would need to be discussed later. Emily Fang, NPR News.
Starting on Saturday, millions of Americans can start shopping for health insurance. About 24 million people using the Affordable Care Act marketplace may be surprised. Many of their monthly premiums are expected to more than double in cost. Health reporter Sarah Bowden says a lot of people will be affected unless Congress extends the subsidies that have helped them pay for coverage.
Rates are going to go up for people who have lower incomes as well. These subsidies also help them. Now, the price increases may not be as extreme, but they will feel it in their wallets.
Sarah Bowden reporting. Starting today, the grace period for immigrants who are renewing their work permits is going away. The Trump administration decision will likely affect thousands of people applying for green cards and seeking asylum. From member station GBH, Sarah Betancourt has more.
Immigrants can only apply to renew work permits 6 months before they expire. But the average wait time for processing is over 6 months and often more than a year. The Biden administration had added an extended grace period for applicants. That ends today. Immigration attorney Robin Nice said that will leave many without valid work permits in a few months.
We're going to see people who are authorized to work based on their immigration status, but who will be fired from their jobs, won't be able to provide for their kids because they could go months and months without having a document solely because immigration takes too long.
The Trump administration says the changes are to boost the vetting process and reduce fraud. For NPR News, I'm Sarah Betancourt.
Hurricane Melissa is in the Atlantic Ocean with top sustained winds of 105 miles per hour. Forecasters say the hurricane is expected to hit Bermuda tonight. Officials in Alaska are moving hundreds of people from mass shelters into hotels. People fled western Alaska earlier this month ahead of a typhoon. Hundreds of these people evacuated to Anchorage. Entire villages were destroyed by the storm. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Several local restaurants and food stores are stepping up and offering free meals to those affected by the government shutdown. As we've been hearing, as of November 1st, this Saturday, recipients of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will lose their benefits. Two establishments that are stepping up are the American Flatbread Pizza Company, which is offering a free small pizza to anyone who can show a SNAP card at their locations in Worcester, Brighton, and Rockport, Maine. The other establishment is Tony's Market in Roslindale. A posting on its social media page says, in part, Tony's is a proud immigrant-owned shop that will help families who need food, with priority for those affected by the shutdown. The posting says they will help to the best of their ability and for as long as the shutdown lasts. Students at Harvard University are pushing back against a new report that condemns grade inflation. These students say it misrepresents their academic experience and would add pressure to an already demanding campus environment. Crimson reports the 25-page report released Monday by the Office of Undergrad Education suggests that Harvard's grading system had become so lenient that it's no longer meaningfully distinguished between students. It warns that the way it's done now fails to perform the key functions of grading and are damaging to the academic culture of the college. In sports, the Bruins host the Sabres at the Garden tonight. Thursday night football, Baltimore at Miami. Rain and lots of it today, folks. Get ready. Don't forget the umbrella. Ella, high in the mid-50s. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And the Public Welfare Foundation, committed to advancing transformative youth and criminal justice reforms.
Welcome to BPR and GBH and NEPM. He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, and we're so glad we are. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is going to zoom in. A few more programming notes, all at the Boston Public Library. The Attorney General, Andrea, I just saw her on CNN.
Yep.
She's going to be with us November 4th at 11 o'clock. Also November 4th, Senator Ed Markey zooms in at noon. The governor's going to be with us on November 5th and at 11 o'clock, and the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us November 18th, 12 to 1. One more thing.
Oh, my God.
The incredible cellist Yo-Yo Ma is going to perform at the library for free. No tickets or RSVP needed on November 19th. That's right. He's going to be there.
Are you
wowing
done?
us all. Yes, I am.
Oh, my God. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Jim.
So here now via Zoom, and not at the library, is political analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck's the former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, host of the show Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the platform Newsphere and Sphere. Also host of the Chuck Toddcast you can find at the chucktoddcast.com or youtube.com/@the-Chuck-Toddcast. Chuck, good to see you. Welcome.
Hi, Chuck.
Thank you, guys. How you doing? I'm actually coming to you from where I'm taping my Newsphere show this week.
Oh, where?
Wonderful restaurant here in Arlington, Virginia called Saltline Oyster. It's a you people in Massachusetts with your wonderful seafood would probably turn your nose up at a seafood restaurant here in Arlington, Virginia, but it's pretty good.
Do you remember where we met you, Chuck Todd?
I do. In Cambridge.
We met you
Cambridge,
at a restaurant. You were doing a thing on MSNBC.
Morning show.
Yeah.
All the other guests canceled, so we were on your show.
Right.
And
No. That was the emergency. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we stepped into the breach.
The summer
that
election
was great.
cycle.
I had to remember the restaurant, though. Which one was it?
I think it's gone.
I can't remember where it was. It was in Harvard Square.
Obviously.
But I don't
Obviously,
remember.
we really helped.
That's right. Shutdown.
Those marketing efforts helped. Yeah, Shutdown. Speaking of shutdowns, huh?
Yeah, well,
exactly.
How's that for your segue?
That's beautiful, because I feel like I've asked you this question over and over and over again.
Yeah,
but
and I've whiffed this.
One more time. What do you think is going to happen with the shutdown?
I continue to be surprised that it's still going.
Yeah.
Simply because I'll say the same thing I said last week, or I mean, may not have done last week, right? May have been off a week, but 2 weeks ago, which is, I actually think the Democrats have accomplished what they were hoping to accomplish out of this. Get healthcare front and center, put a little bit of pressure on Republicans. You can see the pressure is happening. But I'll be honest, I think this is an awkward moment for Democrats. They're upset about the loss of SNAP benefits. Well, the easiest way to hurry up and get SNAP benefits, flowing is to quickly open up the government, right? And November 1st is this weekend. Those notices on the Affordable Care Act subsidies, premiums are going out. The pressure in 3 weeks to do something about it is real. So I feel like the Democrats have passed the point of gaining more political leverage. And so at this point, I continue to believe they risk seeing the political advantages start to erode the longer this goes on.
I sort of adopted, I wouldn't say adopted, I not explained either. I took your position the other day, and I was excoriated by virtually every listener. And then as soon as it was over, I did a little research I should have done earlier. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck Todd, my understanding is the so-called clean continuing resolution that the Republicans want would expire near the end of November. So I have a new position. My new position is this. And I'm one of the two people that Marjorie trashes every day. Schumer or Jeffries is a horrible spokesperson. I stand up and say, okay, every day we're told by Mike Johnson and others that there is a plan to deal with these healthcare issues that will show up 10 seconds after we vote to open the government. So today we are going to vote in the Senate to open the government. You will have, 22 days to get your proposal out there and negotiate. And we are saying right now, if this is not resolved by the end of this continuing resolution, 22 days, we will be shutting down the government yet again. How about that?
Jim, that's what I have been advocating from the beginning, because that was my point about this. This is where I never understood the tactical, decision here to sort of keep stretching this when you actually have another moment of leverage in 3 weeks.
I missed that point.
Use it.
Okay.
Use it. Like, this is... it's not capitulation, it's sort of common sense leverage here. And
it's calling their bluff too. It's calling the Republicans' bluff.
And by the way, Mike Johnson, look, Mike Johnson has just totally advocated. He is easily now the weakest speaker of our lifetime, like not even a close second, right? Dennis Hastert looks incredibly strong and statesmanlike compared to Mike Johnson at this point. And I'm not trying to be snarky, the Hastert private personal stuff is horrendous. I'm talking about as a professional speaker. Yep. He was also a speaker in name only. Tom DeLay was the real speaker when Hastert was there, but he at least kept the trains running. Would make sure people that won special elections got sworn into the office and little silly things like that. So I don't think Johnson. So I think this is a right moment to call Johnson's bluff. He doesn't have any cards. He has none. So I go here, Jim, and that's the thing. Like, what's the case to keep the government shut down on the Democratic side? That's what nobody has been able to articulate to me in a very compelling way.
I can tell you what regular people that were texting us, and that's obviously a teeny tiny sample, but their whole thing was they just don't trust the Republicans. They think that the Democrats will settle this, and then the Republicans will say, screw you.
So fine. So they shut it down again in 22 days.
Then you shut it down in 3 days.
Well,
3 weeks.
That's what they seem to be saying. They don't want the Democrats to give in. They're fed up with the Democrats.
I think
your
best argument, Marjorie, not the listeners, is the Democrats are so horrible at messaging that they will be be unable to explain that what they're doing it is going to seem like a capitulation, even if it's a clever strategic move.
That is, I don't understand. This is one of the things I don't understand, and forgive me if I've asked you this before, but it's obvious that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are lousy on TV. Nothing inspirational about them. Nothing to get your juices flowing. Why don't they pull in a few governors? What is it that they're so?
Don't answer.
I don't think the governors are all on the same page on this. That's why. What governor? Could they? They might be able to get Newsom or somebody like that. But I don't think a Wes Moore or Josh Shapiro wants. Here's the thing: nobody wants to own Congress, and certainly nobody wants to be standing next to a congressional Democrat. That's like standing next to a pile of garbage, right? You worry that their odor is going to somehow, you're going to end up with their odor. And
beautiful imagery, Chuck. That's very nice. Can I raise a related thing? Because I want to get on to the thing you've been talking about, the 3 elections Tuesday, which are not getting nearly, in my opinion, enough attention. But very quickly, I was, should I admit that I was taking a nap yesterday afternoon? It's okay. I was half taking a nap yesterday afternoon, and I was awakened by...
Well, if you stayed up for an 18-inning baseball game...
That's right.
Exactly. I'm still recovering from that, and neither one of them are my favorite teams.
I pretended like I was. So I'm half asleep, and I hear your voice on CNN. And I think the point you were making, and I hope the point you were making is, while the response to the destruction of the East Wing and the Guild Ballroom and all that sort of stuff is strong, it really only matters electorally or some such thing if there is a pairing with horrible feelings about the state of the economy. Did I get what you said right?
100%.
Okay.
That these all of this absurdity of Trump, of King Trump here, right? All of his his obsessions with decorating. And by the way, did you see the George Will line? It was
No.
sort of
No.
like the Gilded Age. He called it the Gilded Age brothel architecture school or something like that. Just this is brilliant, like George Willism, right? That only George Will. And I know I just like butchered it, but it was a terrific column yesterday on Trump and on the East Wing. But I think what Trump has set up, he set himself up for it. And in some ways, it's almost a parallel experience that Biden had. Biden and the Biden White House kept trying to sell a recovering economy by saying, hey, look at all these jobs numbers. And everybody was saying, yeah, that's nice, but are you aware of how much things cost? Donald Trump is going to try to sell a recovering economy by saying, hey, look at the stock market.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to say, hey, that's nice that you're getting wealthy, but I'm still struggling. And I think that in some ways, look at this China deal that he just totally got snookered on, right? Which is, he basically, China played hardball and we acquiesced. Oh, 1 year of soybeans for all of our computer chips. Here you go. Thank you very much. He's such a great negotiator. But, why did he do it? Because he's so paranoid about the stock market, right? And so, all of his dealings with China are all about pumping up the stock market because he really only cares about his own wealth. And that's what it is. And I think when you put all this together, that he seems more focused on his wealth rather than your wealth.
Here's the
He
George
wants to
Will.
worry about that. And that to me is, good, you found the better.
The Gilded Age Brothel School of Interior Design.
Yeah, that's great.
That is one great.
But I think you do the combination of the people being worried about the economy, all these layoffs all over the place, hearing more and more people getting laid off.
AI displacement. Look at Amazon. It's like Amazon's out there bragging about it. We're going to have so few humans working for us.
Yeah.
You're like, wow. That guy really, Andy Jassy, he really needs to get better public relations because he seems way too excited about AI and how few humans they have to employ going forward.
Okay, so can we get to these elections? Because I'm worried we're going to run out of time.
Yeah,
so I
let's do
assume people know we had Bill de Blasio on 2 days ago. So hopefully
the
at least
real Bill de Blasio?
Well, that was incredible.
Okay.
Was that the Times of London that said he was trashing Mamdani when he supports him?
What I love is it turned out to be a guy named Bill de Blasio.
No.
It wasn't a hoax per se. They just
great.
They found the wrong Bill de Blasio.
Okay, so in any case, there's obviously a mayor's race on Tuesday. Well, the balloting has started, and there are two big gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey. So give us your take on what these will or could mean there, Chuck Todd.
Oh, look, I think there's a bunch of ways to look at it. From the perspective of the future of the Democratic Party, I think what's interesting is if you look at the two statewide races, the two candidates are very much sort of what you would call center-left Democrats, very moderate in temperament. They've been very sort of focused on economic issues, things like that. Then you have the city races. New York is the most high profile, but you actually have Seattle, Minneapolis, New York, Pittsburgh had this, and they've all been a similar issue in the urban centers, which is basically frustrated progressives challenging the established liberal leader, sort of old liberal leadership of those cities. Think of it as sort of the liberal business wing, right, of urban centers, and you may see progressives win in all these cities, Seattle, Minneapolis, New York. Meanwhile, the centrist Democrats also win, and then there's going to be this sort of fight to define who's the future of the Democratic Party. Is it these, the Republicans are going to say it's these big city socialists, and the Democratic Party is going to say no, look at our electable governors, right? So you're going to have, I think, that little bit of sort of type of spin job, sort of spin argument between sort of the left-wing ecosphere and the right-wing ecosphere. But I'm sort of looking for a couple of clues about what this could tell us about the midterms. Is there a sweep in Virginia? There's 3 statewide. You have a very controversial nominee for Attorney General on the Democratic side. If she wins, if Spanberger wins by a big enough margin and she drags him over, that tells you how fired up Democrats are. They'll hold their nose and support somebody that maybe isn't the most electable person. So I'm curious about that. I think New Jersey, she's got a little tougher situation because she's, on one hand, trying to catch the national anti-Republican wave. But in New Jersey, there's sort of fatigue with Democratic governor, right?
Yeah.
It's been 2 terms, and they have a habit very similar to Massachusetts, of kind of going back a little bit of going back and forth about every 8 to 12 years, right? So I expect that race, that could be the last race we call. It could be the hardest race to call all night. It could be very, very tight. Wouldn't shock me.
Despite this, you didn't use this term, but a lot of people, for dramatic effect, the civil war within the Democratic Party thing. I'm assuming. Let's assume
it's a debate. I don't know. It's a.
But I don't even know if it's a. I mean, if it turns out, let's assume Spanberger wins. And by the way, one of the interesting things about Spanberger and Sheldon in Virginia and Jersey, one has a CIA background, one has a military background.
And Cheryl's in New Jersey.
A lot of Sheldon, New Jersey. I would assume if I'm Spanberger and I'm asked the question after I win and Mamdani wins, say we're not on really different pages. Maybe we're on different pages about how we get there. We both believe childcare has got to be more affordable.
Right.
Exactly. And we have different paths to those goals because we live and work in different places. So I think if they show more skill than Schumer and Jeffries, Marjorie, that the ability to say that we're not in different places is pretty, I think you can make a convincing argument, no?
I think you can. I mean, look, to go back to pile on Schumer and Jeffries here a minute, the reason this has become such a struggle, I think, for Democrats to defend Mamdani and all this stuff is because Schumer and Jeffries were asleep at the switch when Cuomo came in as, to sort of hijack the Democratic primary in New York City. Correct me if I'm wrong, or Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, are they from South Dakota or Nevada? Do they know? Where are they from? I mean, this, and you want to be the leader of the party?
We should be clear for those who are not getting
the city.
They both live in New York City.
They both live in New York City. That's right. And they
literally had
obviously
nothing to say. They paid no attention to this. They put their own member. I mean, look, part of Jeffries' and indecision on Mamdani is not personal in New York City. It's more of his members in general. He knows that he's running to be speaker. Okay. He is going to be elevating his national profile. He doesn't want to be defined by a socialist. And he knows that could hurt some of his swing district members, right? Whether it's, around if he wants to be speaker. So I get what his hesitation was and what he was worrying about. But, he only has himself to blame for being put in this situation. And the only reason New York City Democrats turned to Mamdani is because Cuomo came in and hijacked and chased away a lot of better Democrats that should have been on the ballot.
That's a good
point.
What
was Hillary Clinton's excuse? I know they fell off the chair when I read that she endorsed Andrew Cuomo. I mean, what's her deal? I don't know. That seems kind of. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Did you see Bloomberg's endorsement? Didn't it feel like oh God, I got to say something? So he flips an Instagram post and puts it in like, well, 4 months ago I endorsed Cuomo, meaning he endorsed him in the Dem primary, and he goes, I'm going to stay with my choice. It was like, what enthusiasm,
And by the way, there's one more big vote on Tuesday we're not going to talk about, but just to mention the ballot question 50 in California about redistricting.
Looks like a wipeout.
But it looks like a big victory for Newsom as opposed to Schwarzenegger's opposing it. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I have to say, as someone who grew up in a different news environment than we have now, the disappearance of CBS News as we knew it is pretty depressing. I assume people read about the recent layoffs with as many as 1,000 in the whole. What's your take about what Barry Weiss is doing over there, Chuck Todd?
I'm not going to judge yet. Let's see the product. Let's give her a chance to. I'm all for trying to. They've only been losing viewers, right, for 15 years. So there's no reason not to try new things and give it a shot. My big question to Barry is, you made a big deal about being independent, and you didn't like to work for the Sulzbergers, but you're willing to take orders from the Ellisons, who clearly have their own political agenda.
I mean, very good point.
I thought, that's what disappoints me. I think she let down anybody, and this has been my disappointment with the Free Press in general, her publication. I love this. The idea, everything she says about what she wants it to be is terrific. That's not, and at times there are good pieces in it, but they virtue signal constantly to the right in ways that is not serious, right? It's kind of silly and kind of cheapens, I think, what I thought were pretty noble goals of what she's trying to do. Look, I am all for more independent journalists. I'm sorry she chose not to be one anymore.
Yeah, and we don't know what's
That's
going to.
my question.
We're not going. Don't know what's going to happen with Paramount purchasing Warner Brothers and CNN. That could be next.
Life magazine was the mainstream media at one point in time. Mainstream media outlets come and go. We're rebuilding it, right? That's the way I look at it. I'm sort of, in some ways, the demise of legacy media I look at as an opportunity. So let's go.
So are you saying in there you think there's a possibility CNN may go?
I assume that the government makes that they'd have to sell it. I say this. A serious regulatory person would say they would have to sell CNN, right? Because you couldn't have, sort of that kind of control of media. You'd probably have to sell CNN and maybe some of the affiliates and a few other things like that. Brendan Carr's turned out to not be a serious regulator, right? So I don't know, but in theory, I would still be surprised if Ellison ends up with both CBS News and CNN. That seems to be a pretty big violation of what we thought the regulation was in America when it came to corporate control of the media.
Okay, 30 seconds.
I'm so old. I remember when you couldn't own a TV station and a newspaper in Boston.
Well, your guy over there at the Herald.
Rupert Murdoch.
And
that's
Ted
right.
Kennedy.
Had to get rid of 25.
30 seconds. Is Shohei Ohtani the greatest baseball player that ever lived?
Yes.
Yes, good.
It's not even a close second, is it?
I mean,
I love it. I am mesmerized by him.
So am I.
It is mesmerizing. I love it.
Totally. So do I. Chuck, good to see you.
Chuck Todd, thank you very much.
See you next week. Be well.
Bye, guys.
We've been speaking with political analyst Chuck Todd, the host of the Chuck Toddcast, which you can find at thechucktoddcast.com. It's a great podcast for political junkies, or youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast, either place. He's also host of Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the Noosphere platform. That's NOO Sphere platform. Chuck Todd, thank you very much. Coming up after this quick break, we're opening the phone and text lines to talk about affordability right here in the state of Massachusetts. Jim's
I'm laughing because there's a GBH logo over Marjorie's left shoulder. I'll explain it. You can't see it when you...
can't see it.
I'll
Okay.
explain it to you a little bit later.
All right. How are you getting by? Are you surviving in these increasingly expensive times? Call or text next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Trying to buy a house lately? You're listening to BPR on GBH and NAPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, the heist at the Louvre Museum has the art world reeling, and we're turning to someone who knows the museum inside and out. Former New York Times Paris bureau chief Elaine Cholino, author of Adventures in the Louvre, How to Fall in Love with the World's Greatest Museum. She joins us to dissect the recent theft and what it reveals about the mystique and the vulnerabilities of the world's most famous museum. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Boston Philharmonic Youth Orchestra, featuring Guy Bronstein and cellist Zvi Plesser, performing November 7th at Symphony Hall. Tickets at bostonphil.org. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And we are back for good, we believe, at the library tomorrow. Joining us on Zoom will be Rhode Island United States Senator Sheldon Whitehouse on the whole mess in Washington, dark money, all that sort of stuff, and obviously live music because it is Friday. Tuesday, we will be joined by the AG. Wednesday, by the governor. I think Senator Markey on Tuesday as well on Zoom. Our question until the top of the hour at 877-301-8970. How much you need to be earning in order to raise a family decently in Massachusetts? A piece in this morning's Globe argues that a six-figure, $100,000 salary simply doesn't cut it anymore in our state. That is, if you're looking to keep up with the rising cost of housing, healthcare, food, childcare, pretty much everything. And by the way, this analysis is apart from the impacts of the shutdown on things like food support and stuff like that. They cite a study from financial consulting firm Smart Asset that found Massachusetts is the single most expensive place to raise a kid in the U.S. And we should say, in case Governor Healy is listening, we're also, based on different criteria, the best place to raise a kid, but we are the most expensive, costing this is staggering, costing something like $36,000 a year to raise a child to the age of 18. Do you know how much money you need to make before taxes to come up with $36,000 to raise a kid? Somewhere in the mid-50s. You have to, so one kid costs you like $50-some thousand of income, taxes reduced, taken away, you pay the $36,000. Of course, affordability isn't just a Massachusetts issue, just as Zohran Mamdani. We'll be talking about that more in the 12 o'clock hour with author Chuck Collins. But in the meantime, we're checking in to hear where you are on affordability in your life, how you're making it all work if you are, and if you're a parent in particular, you're feeling a bigger pinch, how you're making it work. And if you consider the answer, which I hope you're not, but I know some people do, about moving to a place where you can affordably raise a family. And as the shutdown continues, and Chuck said, SNAP benefits set to run out on Saturday, healthcare costs set to skyrocket. That's the subject of the shutdown. All under Trump's economy. One of the interesting things is, you know what Fox News' own poll says on how people view Trump and his handling of the economy?
Yeah,
52% to 30% say he has made the economy worse. 877-301-8970. You and the economy, you and affordability is our topic for the rest of this hour.
Well, this story from the Globe talked about the annual cost of daycare in Massachusetts. Median cost nearly $22,000 last year, double the national median, which is cheaper, $11,000, but that's still a lot. $22,000 each year in Massachusetts. The same story talked about how daycare teachers can't afford to have children in daycare because they're only making. They raised at this temple where some were able to give some scholarships. They raised the price, the salaries of daycare workers from $31,000 to about $51,000, but the daycare workers still can't afford to bring their kids there because they don't have the money. Greg Dunn, this technology worker in Needham, he makes about $100,000 a year, but even that doesn't cover the cost of childcare for his 3 kids. He faced an annual tuition bill of nearly $108,000. Can you imagine that?
Does he have 3 kids?
He's got 3 kids, yeah. He applied for income-based state-funded childcare subsidy. 3 years later, he's still waiting. The waiting list for subsidized childcare is really huge. We talked to Bill de Blasio, the former mayor of New York City, a couple of days ago. He managed to get universal pre-K in New York City. That's a big deal. So your kid can go to school at the age of 4 instead of the age of 5. That's $22,000, if not more, in your pocket, because we still don't have that in Massachusetts. I don't know why we don't have that. It should be like the public schools. You should start really young. And you know what else really drives me nuts while we're on this subject? A lot of the people they interview in these stories are single mothers who are broke. Where are the fathers? Have we stopped going after child support from fathers? Have we stopped the deadbeat dad list? Have we stopped trying to find the Department of Revenue?
Didn't you used to publish in the Herald?
Yes, we did,
dads?
and I was thrilled to publish them. Because you got deadbeat dads. You have these guys that owned $150,000. They owned $75,000. Now, some of them can be quite clever about hiding their income. If they work for contractors or something, they can hide their income. But you're going to nail these guys in the delivery room. That's my opinion. And make sure you have all their information so you can go after these guys. So the women you had children with do not get stuck with the entire bill of raising that man's kids.
877-301-8970. Sean in Boston. I'm a single guy making around $150,000 a year and have pretty much given up on the idea of buying a home. I rent a house with another middle-aged housemate. This is the only way I can save money for retirement. Amy, mom of 3, texts from Rhode Island. Just got laid off. Oh, sorry, she's a call. Our phone screen is down, which I know is shocking for people to hear. So we're going to be a little clumsy on the calls. Amy, you're from Rhode Island. You're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Second time in a little while, but thank you so much. I love you guys. You keep me sane.
You're terrific. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I said you're a caller. I didn't want to be too depressing, but the point of my message is that this is affecting everybody. Not just low-income people who, of course, my heart goes out to. But I'm a single mom with 3 kids. I was making well over the average in the Northeast. But after losing my job suddenly and with the layoffs and everything, the 3 to 4 months savings for living expenses I had is just draining rapidly out of my account. It's terrifying. And I had to I went to a food pantry for the first time, and to surround yourself with people that are so caring and loving, and they don't judge you. But, you know, I wonder if there are other people out there that are just feeling like they can't ask for help because, you know, they've never had to before.
Did you feel that way? Did you feel that way?
Yeah, it took me a long time to go do that. And but when I went and was surrounded by other people that also needed help, I felt better about it. You know, I offered to donate my time, which I have a lot of, so you can pay people back in other ways. Even if it's not, you know, if you were someone where you normally would write a check, make donations, I can't do that anymore, but I have time and I can pay it back. So I would just encourage other people that are feeling scared and hopeless and afraid to reach out and ask for help. Just do it. And don't be embarrassed because it's so scary for everybody.
Can I tell you, not only are you a fabulous caller, you sound like a spectacular human being, Amy. That was great.
Amy, can I ask you a quick question?
We have 20 seconds.
Before you go. Are you getting help from the father of the children?
No.
How come? Do you know?
Amy, can you hold on? Do you mind through a very quick break so we can spend another minute with you? Will you just stay on hold for a second, please?
Drives me insane that these women don't get help from these men.
Quick break.
Okay, I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Next time on The World, National Geographic explorer Paul Salopek takes us to a region known historically as the Levant. It sits in Turkey at the crossroads between Europe and Asia. It's a place charged with history and conflict.
And basically a contested ground between 3 jealous gods and a lot of strongmen that goes back millennia, not just centuries.
That story and more global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Music Worcester, presenting Orchestre Nationale de France, with pianist Daniil Trifonov performing works by French composers Ravel, Bahrain, and Saint-Saëns, Friday, November 7th at Mechanics Hall. More at musicworcester.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. That's Jamie, who you're probably... Oh, no, there are cameras on me. You'll see Jamie standing next to Marjorie in a minute. It's very exciting. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If people are not aware, Marjorie and I can't do anything. And essentially, when anything is tweaked, we need a colleague to come in and pretend like it's not our fault.
Well, a lot of things aren't working today, unfortunately.
We're back at the library tomorrow. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse will join us about the mess in Washington and a whole bunch of things. If you're listening, we're talking about affordability. We started in Massachusetts, but in New England as well. And we're going to continue our conversation with the first caller, Amy in Rhode Island. Amy, thanks for sticking around for a second.
Yeah, Amy, I just wondered, because it's so unfair that single moms often get stuck with the bulk of everything, and I'm wondering if there's a reason, if the Department of Revenue hasn't tried, or if the father is hiding his income, or what's going on.
It goes back to the original court decision, and this, based on your recent discussion, I think, in the past, maybe 20 years ago, mothers were given, they automatically got the kids, and they got everything, and now what I saw when I went through my divorce was that white men or men in general are pushing back and they want more. And so some of the courts are giving them more. And it really puts professional mothers at a disadvantage. And I even felt when I went through the divorce that it was held against me, that I was a smart and educated woman and I was choosing to continue my professional life instead of just staying at home with the children. And And I found that's what I believe is going on in some of the court systems in this country, and it's really deleterious to anybody who wants to be a professional and be a parent.
So you were working full time, and therefore they didn't give you the child support that you might have gotten otherwise.
Right.
And he wanted more time with the kids, kind of one of those battles kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we're both highly educated, so they said no, you can still. You didn't stay at home with your kids for 20 years, where someone like that might have a deficit in the amount of time, getting back into the workforce would be harder. They said, well, that wouldn't hold me back, and I should. But I did feel like, specifically as a professional female, I was trading my professional job. The court felt as I was trading my professional job for my kids. So
I got it.
But
I got it. Amy,
please call us again, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with
for
everything.
That call.
Mike in Providence, you're next on BPR. Welcome to the show.
Amy was also calling for Rhode Island.
Hey there.
I said that.
And they're worse.
Go ahead, Mike.
When you talking about neighbors, I called before. Remember, I was like, I shot my light as bright as I could on their face. But, when you had that flamingo conversation.
I do remember. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyhow, I'm a Grubhub driver, right? I'm a union construction guy, too. And the thing is, union construction, Michelle Mayor Wu, what's up? Come on, we need work. I'm not saying she's doing a bad job, but we do need work. And so I do Grubhub when there's no work, right?
Understood.
But, you can get on DoorDash, and you can get on Uber Eats, and you can be an Uber driver like a taxi or do Lyft. I prefer driving food around because it's not people.
Doesn't talk back. Is that it?
No, it's you don't have to keep your car clean. You're not like.
No, I don't care if my food is in a clean car. You're absolutely right. Mike, are you able to make ends meet with Grubhub or no?
Oh yeah, and so you know what you can do? Get a little job, and then you do DoorDash or Grubhub or whatever after. But the thing is, DoorDash and Uber, they don't treat you well as an employee. Grubhub treats you much better, so you got to keep that in mind. DoorDash does not really care about you.
Mike, thank you for the call. Call us again. We appreciate it. Danielle from Sterling texts, I relied heavily on SNAP, WIC, and women, infants, and children. We haven't talked enough about that. And other assistance years ago when I was faced with navigating single motherhood. It was an incredibly humbling experience, and I will forever be grateful for the assistance I received to help feed my kids and keep them warm. Another pretty beautiful
Here's
message.
another one. We are retired, living off Social Security and annuity. I've taken a part-time job to supplement our income. It helps pay for the increase in grocery prices. We don't travel or vacation. The only streaming service we support is PBS. Thank you very much. And we paid off our mortgage 10 years ago, thank God. Despite that, they're thinking of moving.
Thank you. By the way, Anything Goes is watching on YouTube and says, Jim is dressed like an extra from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I know you mean that as a compliment, so thank you very much. Let's go to Joe in Littleton. You are next on BPR. Thank you for calling, Joe. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I agree with Marjorie to a degree about the child support payments. I'm a child welfare attorney.
Oh.
I handle quite a few DCF cases and custody cases. I do not do divorce, so I don't get involved with child support. But it's a multi-layered issue. Yes, a lot of women are not able to collect. But in my world, I see many men and women who have multiple children together, but are separated. There's no support payments. The women don't go after the fathers for support, and the state is left paying the bill, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of waste that could be gone after on the part of the state for these kids.
Let me ask you something. Are you in Massachusetts? Because Massachusetts is better than Rhode Island. Amy was from Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Rhode Island is lousy at a lot of things.
I'm in Mass.
Okay, Mass. So, because the Department of Revenue used to be fairly vigorous, but you're saying they're not so vigorous
Going after those
anymore.
who are not,
going after, they would dock people's checks.
I'm not saying that because I don't have any knowledge about that.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, in the DCF child custody cases that I deal with, I see many women and men who have multiple children together.
Yeah, and don't. Yeah, I gotcha.
Are separated. There's no support, And that's not fair either to the women.
Yeah.
And a lot of them choose not to go after support because it may affect their benefits, and that's not right on that side.
Yeah,
So
and
it's a multi-layer problem.
It's a multi-layer problem. You're absolutely right. But to me, like I said, the place to get these guys is if they show up at the hospital when the baby's born, right in the delivery room. You don't want to wait a week until they've broken up. You want to get them right there at
Joe,
the moment
thanks
of birth.
For your perspective.
But
We
you're right,
appreciate
Joe.
it.
Thank you very much for the call. I don't see the call, so you go ahead.
I will in a second. Anonymous texter, don't just focus on daycare, which we're not. Housing, healthcare, student loans, and even food cost too much. I don't have kids and can't afford to live here. Doesn't have kids and can't afford to live here. Fix all of them, not just one.
Well, I was talking to this friend of mine who's in his 30s, and their private insurance has just gone through the roof. Cigna, they're not Obamacare people. They're just regular private insurance. And he said it's almost doubled. And he's not sure why it's happened, but it has happened. 877-301-8970. Where are we going, Jim?
Well, before we take the next call, Kate from Boston texts, I'm paying $4,700 per month for 2 kids in daycare. If I can do the math on that quickly, it's almost $60,000 a year. And again, to pay $60,000 a year, you need to make like $85,000 a year just to pay for your childcare. One child not even present in daycare yet, but needed to pay 2 months in advance, which is $10,000 to hold the spot. Not even back to work yet to be able to make my original salary. I mean, it's just...
No, it's ridiculous.
What a mountain.
Well, we said at the beginning, the median cost of daycare per year in Massachusetts, $22,000, the median. And of course, it's more if you have an infant. It's cheaper when the kids get older because they can have fewer teachers in the room.
By the way, the one good thing that did happen in the state, because they're always criticizing the legislature, this is actually an initiative of Healy. The child credit, the state child tax credit was expanded. I think, if one of you can check so I don't misrepresent this, I believe they eliminated the limit on the number of cover anywhere near what the cost is, but it is an expanded benefit that was, I think, in the tax cut bill that Healy signed.
We're going to talk later. When is Chuck Collins coming on?
12 o'clock hour.
12 o'clock hour. He's going to talk about how we're basically getting screwed, the average American, by the oligarchy that's taken over the country. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
His book is called Burned by Billionaires, How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives and Planet. Chuck will be here at 12:30. Deb in Somerville, you're on BPR with Marjorie Egan and me, Jim Browdy. Thanks for calling. Hi.
Yeah, I've always wondered why nobody has looked into it. Maybe they have. But Marjorie, maybe you can look into it. I've always wondered if Bernie Sanders was a deadbeat dad. He had a woman who he got pregnant, who he did not marry in Vermont. And I've heard that he never really had a job until he became mayor. And I remember the attitude. I remember the attitude. And then when his son ran for something in Vermont, he did not support him. He wanted nothing to do with him. And I've always wondered about that with Bernie.
Gosh, I don't. That's the first I know about that. I didn't even know about Bernie Sanders having a child out of wedlock. But maybe somebody can look it up while we're here and tell us. I hope not. That would be kind of contrary.
You mean you hope if he had a kid out of wedlock, he
supported the child.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we don't know. Neither of us do. Our colleagues will check. Thanks for the call, Deb. Appreciate it. 877-301.
Don't be so defensive, Jim. Do you have a child out of wedlock?
No, that's a choice people make. The critical issue is not that. I thought you were saying that. The critical issue is you're taking care of the kid.
Support the child. That's right.
The anonymous texter takes a different side. We're all still suffering the effects of Bidenflation. And if that anonymous texter can text back and say, how do you feel about the way that the current president, I don't know if you may not know that Biden is not president anymore. Trump is president. List for us the things he's done to help counter what you call Bidenflation, because I'd like to read that on the air.
A $300 million ballroom.
That's a thing. That's
what he's doing.
Thing,
Touring apart the White House.
By the way, do you think
China.
No one believes it's going to be $300 million.
Out Australia.
It was $200 million.
Argentina. Excuse me. Argentina. Wrong A country. Argentina. Bailing them out. Was it 40? How much is it in Argentina?
It's $20 billion. I'm not sure if $20 billion is private money he pulled together or if it's all, but it's at least $20 billion of ours.
You'd think that maybe the companies that he's getting to build the ballroom could take a pause and put that money toward staff
food stamps
benefits.
or something. Well, also, you keep saying, everybody on the show keeps saying $300 million. That's his number.
It's going to be
It was
more.
$200 million, then it was $250, and now it's $300, and they haven't done anything yet except rip down the East Wing. So anybody who believes it's going to be a $300 million project is being foolish, I should say.
Listen to this. My family is 2 doctors with 2 kids living in Massachusetts, but we're planning on going to Canada. Other countries have much better deals in terms of healthcare and childcare than we do. Richest nation on earth.
Anonymous text, I'd like to hear what you think about this, Marjorie. Oops, disappeared, so I won't ask you what you think about it. 877-301-8970, Gary in a car. Hi, Gary.
Hey, how you doing, Jim? It's the first time I ever got through.
That's
I've been
incredible.
In Boston for 8 years, and I've been calling for 7.
Now, let me tell you something, Gary. Wait. If you've if you've failed to get on for 7 years and this is the first time you get through, let me just say to you, you better make it good, is all I can say, Gary. Good luck to you. Go ahead.
I'm a 90% disabled combat veteran with 32 years active Army service.
Wow.
I go to the VA for everything, and I look on TV today, and people are lining up at the food bank driving Mercedes and BMWs and Cadillacs, which makes no sense. That means these people's priority is all screwed up. And if those people don't have a job, the Army will take you up into 35 years of age, and they'll put you to work. And then you can get a pension like I do. I'm retired. I'm my pension. I get Social Security, and I get a small check from the VA. And we live in a house I bought cash for when we moved to Boston 8 years ago, and I paid $500,000. I left a 5-bedroom brick home in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which I paid $350,000 for, and only got $250 when I sold it.
So what
is your place to live?
What is your point, though, Gary?
That
people,
deaf.
Is your point that people are stealing money?
They're wasting money on extravagances.
Their priorities are all screwed up.
Gary, can I ask you a question? Do you honestly believe, I'm sure they're outliers, do you think, you heard that woman who called, the first caller on the show, Amy? You think she's typical, or
That's
the person
another
driving the
whole story.
Mercedes?
She got pregnant from some guy, and she's paying for it.
Gary, can I tell you, when I said I'm glad you finally got through, I didn't mean it. No, I'm only kidding. Gary, call us anytime. I don't think your worldview is accurate reflection of what the pain is that's being felt by people who are trying to make ends meet and do the best they can.
And by the way,
thank you, Gary.
Gary's fortunately went to work for some place that did offer pensions. Most people don't offer pensions anymore, which is really too bad. It is true. When Bernie Sanders' son, Levi Sanders, ran for Congress in New Hampshire in 2018, he wrote a profile.
No, the New York Times wrote a profile.
The New York Times wrote a profile. Bernie declined comment and did not endorse him. We do not know about the child support issue, though. Okay.
Oh, so the only part that's true is that he had a kid with somebody he wasn't married to, which I'm not troubled by in the slightest. The issue is, did he support him? And we don't know the answer to that. Okay, if anybody does have a source, feel free to email to us at bpr@wgbh.org. 877-301-8970. We're talking about unaffordability, which I think is a given in this particular society.
Okay. Here's a dad who's calling, who's texting. I am a single dad of 3 girls, retired firefighter, 1 daughter still in college, but I'm here to defend guys like me who didn't default on a responsibility. And in my case, I gave more than I was required to in divorce agreement. Now I'm looking for praise. Not all of us are deadbeat dads. And of course, this gentleman is right. Let's hope most dads are not deadbeat dads. But what you read repeatedly is single mothers who are broke and not getting child support. The single mothers are poor for a lot of times because you can't afford to raise 2 or 3 kids unless you have a huge salary in Massachusetts, and a lot of them. But I'm not going to say certainly all dads. I think most dads are great guys.
Tristan from Peabody, you're next on BPR. Hi.
Hey, how's it going, folks?
Excellent, thank you.
So up in Peabody, I'm running for city councilor up here.
Oh.
We, like a lot of our neighbors, charge our public school students to ride the bus, or at least some number of them. In Peabody, the cost to put a single child on the bus is $325. If you got more than one, it's $650.
Wow.
Cities, and we're not an outlier. We're an outlier nationally. But a lot of our neighboring communities also have a similar sort of, some people ride for free, but a lot of people don't. So we have killer traffic, and families are stuck with the burden of either paying hundreds of dollars if they don't qualify for like a free bus because they're on benefits or something, or they drive their kids, which like really contributes to like being late for work or not being able to take certain jobs. So cities and towns can do a lot more here.
Is that part of your candidacy for city council, is to make the buses free?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We posted something on our website, planforpeabody.com, about buses in the community and how we can put money back in the pockets of working families and get our traffic situation.
Hey, Tristan,
a little bit improved.
Well, it is fine since you're a candidate if you want to say your last name so people can check out and see if they are their cup of tea. Do you want to say your last name?
Oh, yeah, Tristan Brown.
Tristan Brown running for city council in Peabody. Tristan, thanks for the call. Call us again. Appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Here's an anonymous texter. If somebody's outside a food bank in a Mercedes, they most likely means they were professionals, now are not of funds because of the economy in the state of the world right now, not that they bought a Mercedes while they were poor. It would be hard to buy a Mercedes without any money, I would say.
But that caller, with all due respect to him, that's the kind of thing that Ronald Reagan elevated to an art form, government by anecdote, meaning there is always somebody who is gaming whatever system it is you're talking about. The question is, are they the norm? And while you want to ferret out, it's sort of, it's analogous to what the Republicans are pretending is all their Medicaid reforms, in quote, cuts are about waste, inefficiency, and corruption. And it's obviously preposterous.
And people who are here illegally.
Right, which has nothing, I repeat, nothing to do with any Democratic demand in terms of restoration of funding, because it is illegal to spend federal tax dollars on direct health care benefits for people who are undocumented.
Here's Catherine in Worcester. I have 3 kids, age 5 and under. My husband is a public school teacher. We have been on one income of about $75,000 for the past 2 years since my part-time job closed. We have to pay very close attention to finances, always panic when there's a large home repair. But we are very grateful for programs in Massachusetts like fuel assistance and even a special mortgage that we income qualified for back in 2020 when interest rates were low. I do not know how we would manage if we did not have that.
You know what, I try as often as I can and I forget, but the first caller, Amy, today mentioned how scared she was at times. The fear, I told you, when my mother was working 3 jobs, single mother, how scared she was all the time about her inability, and she tried to shield it from me, to pay a bill. Felt if one bill was unpaid, the marshals, literally, she felt the marshals were going to come in the middle of the night. The fear that people feel when they're trying to take care of their kids, and that's all that matters. It's just immense, and it's never factored in to the pain that's being caused by irresponsible cuts.
I think the stress of not having any money is just terrible. It's
not knowing what it isn't like it's a waiting game kind of thing. Maybe it'll never get fixed.
Luckily,
you think it's horrible.
She could always afford that extra piece of salami on top of your sandwich every night, Jim, before you went to bed.
Well, she decided what her priorities were, and she knew the priority was the Hebrew National. Slice that baby. I bought one a couple of weeks ago, Market Basket for old times, by the way. You ever had Hebrew National salami?
No, I've not.
You have never had it?
I don't think so.
It's really
I'm not
good
a big
for you,
salami.
too. It's very healthy.
Salami person. Here's another great point. In response to Gary's call, why do we, society, never seem to care about the advantaged people gaming the system? And that is interesting. Why don't we? I mean, we haven't talked about the guy from Stewart Healthcare for weeks who,
still not indicted except in one
90-foot
island
yachts
nation.
and 150-foot sailboat, or maybe I get them mixed up, or he's going over to Versailles to watch his wife. People died a woman died in this hospital, and they had to repossess medical stuff. Why don't people get so angry at him?
Well, it's interesting. That's a guy who's gone through a lot, a vet, and he talked about his 90% disability.
Yeah.
And he didn't mention the tax breaks that Chuck Collins is going to mention for the wealthiest people in America that Trump did. It's not even on their radar. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you to the people that have been listening to us on NEPM. We appreciate very much you tuning in. We're going to be at the library tomorrow. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is going to join us. We are moving on now. Right after the noon news, you're going to be joined by Public Safety Secretary of Massachusetts, formerly Andrea Cabral. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Paquin Entertainment Group, presenting Moonwalkers, a 360-degree immersive experience narrated by Tom Hanks, featuring NASA footage, astronaut interviews, and more. Now open. Tickets at moonwalkersboston.com.
Celebrate the Halloween season with spooky stories and zombie history. Watch Things That Go Bump in the Night at 9, followed by Exhumed, a history of zombies at 10. Tonight on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPR. Donald Trump seems to understand he can't run for a third term, at least for now he does, despite some of his closest allies pushing the possibility. Former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral will weigh in on that, plus the Globe Spotlight report on DEA arrests are not what they appear to be.
I'm Marjorie Egan, then as economic scholar and heir to the Oscar Mayer Wiener fortune, Chuck Collins, on his latest book, Burned by Billionaires, How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives and Planet. Plus, national security expert Juliette Kaim on the Gaza ceasefire. Israel says it's back on after airstrikes earlier this week killed 100 people, and the hurricane in Jamaica. It's all next, hour number 2 of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says the U.S. will start testing nuclear weapons on an equal basis with Russia and China. NPR's Jeff Brumfield reports the announcement could mark a reversal of decades of policy.
The president made his announcement in a lengthy post on Truth Social. The U.S. has not conducted a test of a nuclear weapon since 1992. Instead, it uses scientific experiments and computer simulations to make sure its bombs still work. The voluntary test moratorium has been in place since the end of the Cold War as part of an effort to maintain nuclear stability. It's not entirely clear what resuming testing on an equal basis means. The U.S. is not prepared to conduct a nuclear test in the near term, and China and Russia haven't tested their nuclear weapons in decades either, though both nations have been modernizing their arsenals in recent years. Jeff Brumfield, NPR News.
NPR has obtained the draft text of a proposed rule barring federal Medicaid reimbursement for medical care provided to transgender patients younger than 18. The proposals by the Department of Health and Human Services also would prohibit reimbursement through the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, for people under 19. An additional proposed rule would go further, blocking all Medicaid and Medicare funding for any services at hospitals that provide pediatric gender-affirming care. There's been no formal HHS response yet to this. With no apparent end to the government shutdown in sight, more than 65,000 infants, toddlers, and preschoolers are at risk of losing access to Head Start, the federal program that provides childcare and early learning for low-income families. Here's NPR's Corey Turner.
Head Start programs all over the country are on different federal funding cycles, and the National Head Start Association says 134 of these programs are supposed to get their next round of funding November 1st, but they can't if the government is shut down. These at-risk programs are in more than 40 states, but the hardest hit will likely be in Florida, Georgia, Missouri, and Ohio. Overall, Head Start serves about 750,000 children, providing high-quality preschool, health screening, and free meals. If the shutdown continues, more and more centers will run out of money each month. That would force many working families to choose between taking care of their kids and going to work. Corey Turner, NPR News.
Universal Music Group says it has reached a settlement with the artificial intelligence music platform Udio in a copyright infringement lawsuit. And UMG says the two are collaborating. They're launching a subscription-based AI music creation, consumption, and streaming platform next year. UMG is also joining forces with Stability AI to work with artists in creating licensed tools. UMG, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Records are still suing the developer of Suno AI. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A member of the Dublin, Ireland Fire Brigade who was convicted last week of raping a woman in a hotel room while visiting Boston during St. Patrick's Day was sentenced to 7 to 9 years in prison today. Court records show a jury convicted Terence Crosby of a single count of rape last week after a trial in Suffolk Superior Court. It was Crosby's second trial this year after a jury came back hung during his first trial in June. Mass Live reports that Crosby will serve his time at the Susan Baranowski Correctional Center, the state's only maximum security prison. He's being credited with more than a year of time served. And lawyers for Aidan Carney, the blogger known as Turtle Boy, have asked a judge to order a special prosecutor to turn over evidence recently pulled from former Massachusetts State Police trooper Michael Proctor's cell phone. Carney's lawyer, Mark Betterow, wants the evidence because he says it could benefit Carney's defense on witness intimidation charges. And under state and federal law, evidence that could benefit a defendant must be turned over. Proctor was fired from the state police in March over his conduct in the Karen Reed case. He sent a series of demeaning text messages about Reed while investigating the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. But this past Friday, prosecutors found what they call homophobic comments and disgusting messages and photos on Proctor's phone, some dating back 10 years or more. Once that surfaced, Proctor stopped trying to get his job back. Clouds and 54 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Think or Swim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Okay.
Back at the library tomorrow with Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I'm really goofing this up.
You're
I
really
apologize.
doing well here. I think it's good.
He's going to zoom in.
He is.
Okay, hello.
We at the library tomorrow?
We are.
I have one other note before we introduce our next guest. We had a huge amount of feedback yesterday when Marjorie grabbed a coat because she didn't have one yesterday when she came to work, and it turned out the jacket she wore happened to be a WBUR jacket.
Yes, a friend of mine gave it to me like 10 years ago.
We don't work at WBUR.
We do not.
You're aware of that. Okay.
Right.
Well, let me tell you what happened after many of you comment. Someone else at BUR, because I didn't have one, sent me one. Luckily, before I even received it yesterday, someone from GBH brought to us, both of us, GBH news jackets. Hold that up, which we did not have. There it is.
Very soft.
And so as a result,
Very
let's be
warm.
clear, when we go home today, what will we be wearing?
Our GBH jackets.
GBH news jackets.
Excuse me, GBH
Thank
news
you very
jackets. They're
much.
lovely. The little
We wanted to
logo on the
clarify
left-hand
that.
side.
Yes.
They're beautiful.
Thank you all for your generosity on that subject matter. Joined now via Zoom by Andrea Cabral. She's the former sheriff of Suffolk County, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety. Hello there, Andrea.
Hi, not for nothing, but I've been doing this show for like 11 years, and all you've ever given me is a cup.
Well, by the way, I just heard from a person in authority, the jacket is in the mail. So can you let us know as soon as you receive it, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're always trying to sneak off with the presents, the Eton new advanced crank rate of the Odyssey edition. Never quite works for us either, Andrea. But anyway, Trump's talk about Trump running for a third term. He says he can't do it. Then Steve Bannon says he can do it. Get used to it. What do we think about this Trump running for a third term talk?
Well, the first thing I would do is commend to people, if you can find the time to read this, please make the time. Retired Judge Michael Ludwig. Many people, will probably remember him from the January 6th hearings, congressional hearings, and much of his writing. Very conservative judge, served in the Reagan White House, the Bush White House, was ultimately appointed by Bush to the appeals court, I think, for the Fourth Circuit, but a renowned jurist, well-published, well-respected, and actually is considered to be a leader for young conservatives, young and old. He has a piece that's coming out in The Atlantic in December of 2025, but I think you can get access to it before then, where he writes, it's very comprehensive. He writes about this notion of Trump behaving like a king, and he's basically making the point that because he gives the litany of everything that Trump has done to consolidate and amass power, and when you see it all in one place, it is absolutely terrifying. But he's also sort of making the case that don't think for a minute that Trump won't try to run for a third term. There's a story in the New York Times, I believe, has sort of a misleading headline. It says Trump seems to concede that he can't run for a third term. Concede at all. In fact, the fact that he shouldn't be running for a third term, or that it's prohibited, is in the Constitution. It's not for him to concede or not to concede. But the more accurate headline would be is that he is musing about circumventing the Constitution so that he can run for a third term. No one should fool themselves into believing that he doesn't intend to try to find a way to run for a third term or to win by a third term. I mean, there are scenarios that have been suggested, one of which is that he runs as a vice president versus president, and then hopefully with a candidate who wins, who then walks away and gives him the office for a third term. And it would be with a nudge and a wink by everyone who votes for whoever this supposed presidential candidate is that it's really a vote for Trump. The fact that this is even being contemplated by a president of the United States is insane, but that him circumventing the Constitution is something he's done every single day in his second term, and it's what he tried to do nearly every single day of his first term.
You know, and let me say two things. One, even that vice presidential scam, I believe, violates the Constitution, because I believe the requirements for running for vice president include that you would have to be eligible under the constitutional rules for being president of the United States, which he is not. The reason I wanted to talk about this was two very quick things. People, I'm so glad you quoted Ludwig, who, by the way, to even go further, was a darling of every single conservative politician in this country until he had the courage to testify against Trump in front of Congress. No one has embarrassed themselves, I would say, in the last 8 months more than Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. And obviously, he would not have had the courage 2 days ago to say, I don't think there's a path for Trump to run for a third term unless the White House allowed him to say it. And anybody who thinks that next week, and I think this is one of your points, he's not going to say, I am running again for a third term, is ridiculous. Is that a safe assumption? This doesn't put anything to rest, because his whole 8 months has been law and constitution breaking behavior, correct?
Exactly. And there's no point to this unless he can have power indefinitely. You know, I think we're gonna talk about the Boston Globe story, about the lies, about the cartel arrest.
Let's do it right now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
The Globe has a spotlight story about what the DEA has said about these arrests. Supposedly, the DEA made 100 and something arrests they claim were people who were at the Sinaloa cartel. Mm-hmm. Now, the cartel talk is a big part of Trump's shtick, right? He's the only one that can save us from these drug cartels that are bringing drugs into the country. He has actually said very publicly, we just ought to kill all these people who are bringing drugs into the country. And he's been using this as a mechanism for these strikes, these completely non-congressionally authorized strikes against these boats, these from Latin American countries that supposedly are cartel affiliated and drug affiliated. No proof of that whatsoever, right? But it really is to further this notion that he can exercise military power, military might against Americans, against foreign countries at will. He doesn't need the authorization of Congress to do it. So the DEA, and part of the point that I want to make here is that what we're seeing in every secretariat in the executive branch, whether it's the DEA, whether it's the Department of Justice, the Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, all the secretaries are his handpicked sycophants. So lying to the American public to further whatever gets him more power and whatever helps him consolidate power is what they're doing. This is a prime example. The Globe Spotlight talks about the DEA making this huge splash saying they've arrested all of these people. I just have to read what the Globe went through to find the actual facts.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to find it here because it's not a lengthy paragraph, but the reporters contacted more than 75 state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. They sifted through more than 1,600 pages of court records that were filled with, they had 4 dozen public records requests, knocked on dozens of doors, and conducted scores of interviews. And what they found is that these people who are supposedly part of the cartel, a lot of them are low-level drug addicts. They are not the movers and shakers in the fentanyl business. They are, in fact, the victims and the addicts of the fentanyl crisis and the opioid crisis. People from homeless encampments, people whose records are so minor that when they were supposedly arrested for being the movers and shakers of this cartel, they weren't even charged with felonies. They were charged with misdemeanors. They weren't asked a single question by law enforcement about their connection to the cartel. They're not identified in the indictments. The one thing that federal agencies do is identify people in the indictments. When you see a drug indictment, it'll tell you who's connected to who, what cartel they're talking about, what high-level people they've arrested. Those whose identities they need to protect, they may identify by a letter or a number, but they didn't identify any of these people, and people were let go on their personal recognizance. This is a lie. This is not
lying.
Actually,
totally.
They're completely lying.
Yeah, one of the guys was arrested for shoplifting some Jolly Rogers at the local 7-Eleven. It's like he stole candy from the store. I mean, it is unbelievable. And they're lying about these people in the boats. I have no doubt. No doubt. But they, and by the way, shout out to the Boston Globe. You know, it is really expensive to run newspapers. It's incredibly expensive to do that kind of reporting the Spotlight team does. But if you don't have things like the Spotlight team, you can't go through those 1,600 pages of court documents to get enough information to write stories like this. So kudos to them for doing this kind of great investigative work.
And also making the connection to what you two are talking about, why should we believe that the bombing of these boats is anything but murder that makes Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump get a charge of excitement. You know, Trump has been, isn't tweeting, posting the videos of these hits.
Yeah, more today.
Well, I know, with glee that is really rather incredible. And I have to say, while they're not doing much, James Lankford, would you not agree, from Oklahoma, is as conservative as any member of the Senate gets? He had the decency to say the other day, not that anything has happened. He's on the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, and he was talking about the fact he's never had an experience before where there was not at minimum notification, even if not full consultation, with the select intelligence committees before an action like these droppings of bombs on these boats. And he had the decency to say, if Joe Biden was, I'm paraphrasing, if Joe Biden was doing what Donald Trump is doing, and this is a direct quote, I'd be apoplectic. So hopefully this is the thing where a couple of senators in particular are going to attempt to protect their constitutional authority, which they have abdicated completely on almost everything. What are you're about to? They won't.
They
You're
won't.
probably right.
They absolutely will not. And here's the thing: while saying that if Joe Biden had done it, he would be apoplectic, Lankford was not apoplectic about Trump doing it. He merely made the statement, and he's only one senator.
You're probably right.
And to your point about, Johnson's sort of saying, no, the Constitution doesn't allow for this, and they won't have enough votes for a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, not enough time for an amendment.
Every single time we have said that there would either be an institution or a document or precedent or decency or morality or the American way, what we understand to be the American way that would stop Trump, it hasn't. So the notion that there is really anything that he certainly can be stopped, but the notion that right now in this moment that we have a Congress that has the bravery or the courage or even the decency to do their job, they're not going to do it. They have no intention of stopping him. So him running for a third term, if that's what he wants, the people who are sitting in Congress right now will make that happen.
I agree. One last thing, though. The Ludwig thing in the Atlantic was long, so I have to say I didn't read it as carefully as I should have. But doesn't he go on to make the point that there is reason to fear that Trump is going to do whatever he can to cook the midterm elections?
Yes.
And I think he says, he says the proof of that is what he did on January 6th, which I think is, and again, Ludwig is not some wild talker. If you Google him and see on YouTube his testimony before Congress, this is a very measured human being where every word is thought out before he says it. But that's, we got to be talking about that more than we're doing, too.
Well, I think that's why the National Guard troops are there to prepare people for having National Guard troops in the cities during the elections to intimidate people who may be people who speak with an accent or people of color or whatever. I mean, I think that's a street 2026.
They're only going to Democratic cities. The DOJ just recently announced that they were sending election monitors to California, I believe, and Chicago. Election monitors, which is completely unnecessary. What people don't realize, or they're just not making the connection, is he tells you what he's going to do. He asked Texas to redistrict and continue to gerrymander. They did it.
Yep.
North Carolina is doing it. I think Virginia is doing it. A number of red states are doing it. He's rigging the election in real time. State legislatures that are run by the GOP are continuing to gerrymander, and that is how he intends to steal the election.
And a Trump guy...
He intends to make it Democrat-proof so that no Democrat can ever be elected in anything approaching a majority, and that's how they solidify power.
And a Trump guy just purchased Dominion voting machines, the ones that were suing because claims that they were not functioning correctly in the last election. By the way, Callie from Boston just sent a text, and she said, and I think she's right here, if you really listen to what Steve Bannon said, he just said Trump will be president in 2028. He didn't say anything about being elected or winning an election. Just he's going to be still the president in 2020.
And she's right. She's absolutely right. And because they don't care. I've said this a million times on the show. They do not intend for there to ever be another free and fair election in this country. And people who believe that we can just go along until the next election and everything will fall into place are deluding themselves.
Okay, so here's something that really impacts people's finances. Medical debt is the single biggest cause of bankruptcy in America, even among people who have insurance. The Biden
Can I interrupt you for a second?
What?
Only because time is getting short. That is an important I'm nervous we're not going to get to something that all three of us
Oh, okay. Do you want to wait on this?
So if we have time, we'll get back to this.
He's trying to make it harder for you to... medical debt's going to be big trouble. It's basically what this story says.
Right. He wants to undo what Joe Biden has done, which is to protect
he wants to undo it.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk... Judge Leslie Harris is... died recently in juvenile court, and his reputation is stunning. But you wanted to talk about this for a minute, and it matters to us that you do. So can you take a couple of minutes and bring us up to speed on the life and times of Judge Harris?
He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And, we say often there are lots and lots of judges that are a credit to the bench. Leslie Harris surpassed that. So he's a former school teacher.
Yeah.
He was a public defender for many years. He was an assistant district attorney in the Suffolk County DA's office for many years, and became a judge, and ultimately the chief of the juvenile court, became a judge in the juvenile court when it was first established, and then became the chief judge of the juvenile court. But when I say credit to the bench, his concept, and it sprang from his inherent decency, very strong moral compass, and sense of right and wrong. His notion of the juvenile court as a transformative place for juveniles really is unsurpassed on the bench, certainly in Massachusetts. I mean, juvenile court is dealt with differently than adult court, but it is run by adults who have very adult concepts of punishment. And Judge Harris saw every juvenile who came before him not as a child in need of coddling, but as someone whose life could change. It wasn't that he diminished some of the very serious things that juveniles are capable of doing, but he always balanced it against this notion that a juvenile's life could be changed with the right intervention. He was unfailingly fair. I don't know that we'll see his like again in the juvenile court, which is really sort of a shame, but he mentored a lot of people. A lot of people owe their careers to him in some way, shape, or form, or the formative parts of their careers. And I hope that we do see his like again, but I just wanted to take the moment to mark his passing and to say how grateful I am that we had someone like him on the bench.
How'd you know him, by the way, Andrea?
I was in the Suffolk County, he was in the Suffolk County DA's office in the early 90s, as was I. Yes, and I remember when he went to when the juvenile court was first established, when he went to the bench, and we were friends, and we stayed friends. And in fact, when I was at Ascend, and I was trying to, I was creating a 501c3 at Ascend, I wanted him, and he agreed, to be the CEO for this 501c3 that was actually going to give back to the community using the profits from the cannabis company, from Ascend, the cannabis company. He never changed. He stayed the same. He brought a lot of good into the world, and he was a genuine public servant.
I really am glad you did that.
I want to mention Boston College's their career and what a mentor he'd been to this particular person. It's a beautiful piece about him that it's really moving. It talks about how he started as a probation officer, and it tells stories about his understanding of how difficult juvenile justice can be and some of the circumstances that kids grow up in that leads them to these bad places where they wind up before a judge.
And he also had a marvelous sense of humor. I've laughed every time I've been, I was in his company. He and I shared laughs about something. He just was one of the best and most well-rounded, I think, people the legal profession has ever had in their company.
Glad you talked about him. Great to see you, Andrea. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very, very much.
Be well.
Okay, we have been speaking with Andrea Cabral, the former sheriff of Suffolk County and former Secretary of Public Safety for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are moving on. We're going to talk up next with a gentleman who has studied the Billionaire class in America. Chuck Collins, written a great book about it. He's going to tell us how we're kind of getting screwed by the billionaires. Even your dogs and cats.
True.
Are getting
well, you
screwed.
brought this up the other day, actually.
Private equity taking over vet places. You wonder why you're paying more? Well, the Billionaire class is taking over the vet practice.
By the way, Zoe, our colleague, am I allowed to say this on air? Sure. Spent $1,500 to have her cat's tooth pulled yesterday.
Teeny tiny tooth.
Yep.
Teeny tiny tooth.
Teeny tiny tooth.
But we're glad the cat pulled through. Anyway, Chuck Collins joins us next to talk about massive inequality in the United States, what we can do about it. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, grab your hoverboard and set your time circuits. Our Wednesday watch party is heading to 1985 for Back to the Future.
1.21 gigawatts. What the hell is a gigawatt?
40 years later, Marty, Doc, and the DeLorean are still riding that 88-mile-an-hour blast. Cue up the movie, watch along with us, and call in to share your favorite moments. That and more on The Culture Show next Wednesday at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where MBA and master's degree students can build vital business skills through experience. Learn more at northeastern.edu/business. And Moderna. mNEXSpike COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA, by Moderna is available. More information about mNEXSpike is available from pharmacists and medical providers.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are finally back at the library tomorrow. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse will zoom in and talk about the nightmare in D.C., obviously a United States Senator from Rhode Island. Live Music Friday, Sue O'Connell. Next week, a lot of things. On Tuesday the 4th, Election Day, Governor will spend an hour with us. Following after that, Senator Markey will zoom in. I take it back. The Attorney General will join us on Election Day, 11 and 12. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Arranging my seat.
Okay. Followed by Senator Markey that's Tuesday. And on Wednesday, Wednesday, Governor Healy will join us an hour. I think I got that right. Okay, we talked with our audience early in the show, top of the show, about the affordability crisis so many are facing, not just in Massachusetts and not just all New England, but across the country. Our next guest, Chuck Collins, has long argued it's the richest among us who are making us all live less prosperous lives, and he knows a thing or two about it. He's the great-grandson of Oscar Mayer. Yes, that Oscar Mayer. He famously, Chuck, gave away his Oscar Mayer inheritance to charity. He's director of the program on inequality and the common good at the Institute for Policy Studies. His latest book, which is terrific, that's what we're talking about today, is Burned by Billionaires, How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives. He will be at Phoenix Books in Burlington, Vermont on November 5th, and at Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley, Mass. On the 20th. You go to Chuck Collins Writes, as in WRITES, chuckcollinswrites.com/events. Chuck, congratulations. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me. Hi, Marjorie.
Yeah, hi, Chuck. Your book is also terrifyingly enraging. It's just so got me all worked up here and into a frenzy. So tell us how we got to the second Gilded Age, this dramatic disparity in wealth.
Well, if you think about in the 1950s and 60s, we were kind of moving in the right direction. We were pulling together as a society. The middle class was expanding. Then we made this huge wrong turn. And I would just summarize it as the rules of the economy, tax policy, trade policy, what government spends money on or doesn't spend money on. The rules of the economy have been tipped in favor of wealth holders at the expense of everyone else. So, and you do that for 50 years, and here we are.
So why was inequality being attacked during that time frame you talked about, and then why did we move away from that pursuit, Chuck Collins?
It was really coming out of 120 years ago, the first Gilded Age, the great robber barons, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, and the Depression, that we as a society decided we were going to tax speculative wealth at high levels and invest it in things that raised the floor. And that was the shared prosperity formula that worked pretty well for 30 years. By the time we get to the 70s, the racial wealth divide is narrowing, the gender income gap is narrowing, the rising tide is lifting all the boats, not the yachts. And then mid-70s, we start to go in the other direction.
Well, who started it?
Well, I think ultimately it was powerful industry leaders and wealthy individuals who lobbied to change the narrative about wealth and to attack the whole idea of taxing the top. I mean, if you think about it, under Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower would probably be called a socialist today. He supported
a Republican general, we should say, before being president. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was a pretty wide consensus that there should be some kind of limit on extreme inequality in wealth. We had an inheritance tax that actually worked and broke up hereditary dynastic wealth. And then, today we have an estate tax that's a joke. We don't really have an inheritance tax anymore. So all of those things have fueled this rise to the top. And it's not just wealth going to the top 10% or the 1%. Most of it is going to this top 1/10 of 1% and the billionaire class. That's where the huge gains of the last decade are landing.
Well, you talk about something, because I know the income tax rate was much, much higher for wealthy people back after World War II and right through to mostly to Reagan. I think it's when things dramatically changed.
At one point in the 90% range, by the way.
But this startled me. In 1952, 32% of all federal revenue came from corporate income tax. By 2021, while profits for those corporations soared by 44%, and CEOs were all getting rich, the corporate income tax accounted for a mere 9%. So it went from 32% to 9%. I mean, that's a big deal.
The shift. There are these sort of invisible shifts. One is off federal taxes, which is more progressive, off taxing the wealthy, onto state and local taxes, off corporate taxes onto individuals, off of taxes on wealth and capital gains and onto wages. Again, you do that for decades, and lo and behold, you wake up and your local property tax bill is like, wow, it's so high, and my sales tax is high, and I'm mad at my local government. But you have to understand this was a 40-year trend at the national level that brought us to this.
One thing about that transition before we get into the here and now, Chuck Collins, and author of the book Burned by Billionaires, was it the scam of trickle-down economics that transitioned us? Because it seems to me that those who were for wealth concentration at the top were able to pretend like they weren't by saying the byproduct of that concentration is that everybody benefits because it, quote, trickles down to everyone else. Was that
David Stockman, remember
exactly,
him?
right, the head
Mr.
of
Trickle-Down.
OMB. Was that the transitional thing that got us to this?
Yeah, I think that there was a strong case made that somehow if you overtax wealth and income at the high levels, it's discourages investment. And so, cut taxes on the wealthy, and this will trickle down, and we'll see economic prosperity for all. And, well, I guess you could say that 40-year experiment has run its course, and now we're in this kind of extreme inequality phase. And wages have pretty much stayed flat for most of those decades.
Give us, before we get into the consequences of this inequality, give us pick an image or two that really expresses it best about how intense the inequality is, Chuck Collins.
Well, here's one just fact. I guess, in the U.S., I just looked this morning, we have like 916 billionaires whose combined wealth today is over $8 trillion. Before the pandemic, we had 820 billionaires whose combined wealth was $3 trillion. So just in a very short time since the beginning of the pandemic, the wealth of those at the top has almost tripled.
How's it done for those who are not at the top in that same time frame?
Well, I would say people in the top 10% have benefited from an economy where the rules are rigged to funnel wealth to the top, but pretty much everybody else has not benefited. The bottom 1%'s share of the wealth pie continues to shrink. There's still a huge number of households that have no wealth, zero or negative wealth. And so that, I guess I'd like to see a society with fewer billionaires and more thousandaires.
And, you talk about how the impact of this, we were talking about vet care, private equity getting into vet care and the prices going through the roof for your dog and your cat. But you also talk about funeral care, student debt, prisons being private equity's role in this. So tell us about that.
Well, you began the show talking about affordability,
right?
Just what things cost. And I'm trying to, in this book, make the connection between the day-to-day expenses, the day-to-day bills that we experience, and the fact that the billionaires have sort of captured the economy and captured huge sectors. So you're not imagining it that your veterinary bills are higher, your healthcare bills are higher, because the billionaires they have so much money that they're sort of moving their money into the investments that squeeze. I call it kind of hyper extraction. They're trying to squeeze more money out of the real economy. So healthcare, we saw this with Stewart Healthcare and other companies. Yeah, that's kind of the playbook. You buy up a profitable company, you slice and dice up the assets, you sell off things, you extract big fees, and you squeeze the patients and workers harder. And that is the playbook. And we're seeing that in pretty much every arena. And even in housing, where we have this acute housing shortage, the billionaire-backed private equity funds and these big investors are buying up rental housing, buying up single-family housing, buying up mobile home parks. And Jim knows my organizing in my 20s. I worked with mobile home park residents to organize to buy their parks. And one of these mobile home barons says, I love buying mobile home parks. It's like buying a Waffle House where the customers are chained to the booths. They got nowhere to go.
God.
Well, think about that. You're going to the emergency room. You got nowhere else to go. You're just going to have to pay. And that's where they love to focus on investing and squeezing us a little bit harder.
Now, for those very wealthy people who happen to be listening to our show today,
right.
I want to say something. I think I got it right. Reading your book, this is not an assault on billionaires. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck Collins. Your book, it's an assault on a system that allows for and, in fact, encourages great wealth inequality. Is that a fair summary of what you're doing here?
Yeah, I don't really zero in too much on the personalities of the billionaires or their individual behavior because it is a system. It's a system of laws and rules at this point. We're sort of on inequality, extreme inequality autopilot right now. The economy's wired in a certain way. The billionaires are investing and using their wealth and power to get more wealth and power. That dynamic is happening for sure. But it's not about the individual billionaires. I don't like that phrase, billionaires shouldn't exist. I think that sort of has this little whiff of a exterminism or something. But I would say we don't want an economy where so much of the society's wealth is going to billionaires and not to the bottom 70% of households.
What is the most troubling to me, and we talk about this a lot on the show, independently of your wonderful work, Chuck Collins, is when you describe all the things factually in your book with a colossal citation, I should say, it's not inconceivable. We won't even know about these things down the line with the media concentration. You were talking to Chuck Todd before about Ellison and what they're doing to Paramount and CBS and what they may do to CNN.
Cutting.
We know Bezos is editorials, including the absurd editorial the other day in the Washington Post praising Trump for the gilded ballroom kind of thing. So our access to even information to be able to make decisions about what government and corporate decision-making should be around wealth inequality is disappearing as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, part of it raises news channels that are not controlled and dominated by billionaires so that we can have accurate information. We're losing our voice and vote. The billionaires are essentially, capturing our political system. You kind of go down the list, trashing our environment. The billionaires are the super emitters, and they're blocking the transition to climate solutions. And that's a lot of what I look at is sort of where are they exercising their power in our lives?
You have another incredible statistic. This is after Reagan. This is Richard Nixon. But during his administration, the top tax rates for the wealthiest Americans as high as 70%. The effective tax rate today, according to Forbes 400 list, is 8.2%.
Explain what effective means, though, Chuck, if you would.
Well, you hear about, the top tax rate is 70%, but the effective rate is what's the actual percentage of someone's income that they're paying in taxes. And so that's the number that we should really be watching. And, in the 1950s, 60s, the top tax rate, the effective rate was closer to 50% on the ultra wealthy, on their income over $5 million. And now that continues to go down. And some of the billionaires have gamed it down to zero or single digit percentages of what they're actually paying. And then there's the fact that so much money now is hidden in offshore trusts and shell companies that isn't even being measured.
And by the way, the reason it gets the effective rate, we should say, is because of deductions and credits and things that in many cases are illegal.
I was just going to say real quickly, one of the things that is amazing to me is that they're used, as you said, in the 50s and 60s, you could have one person in the family supporting four people. They could buy a house, they could take a vacation for 2 weeks. They weren't loaded, but they could survive. That is all over now. I mean, it's done. It's done because of these policies.
Yeah, people have to work multiple jobs just to kind of maintain the standard of living that a previous generation held. That is, when people are disgruntled and have grievances, they're legitimate. People are feeling the squeeze. That's why the whole conversation about affordability is so important.
So, Chuck Collins, before we get to you telling us what let's say atop your list of reforms, things individuals can do, things government can be forced to do to reduce this inequity, one quick one that matters a lot to people in our immediate audience. We've recited about 3,000 times the frightening statistic from the Federal Reserve from the 2017 or 16. The average wealth in Boston for a white family is $247,000. The average wealth for a black family, $8. Dominican family, $0. Is there any impact of the ultra wealthy on that? Because that's not a statistic about just the top 10th of 1%. It's a general statistic about wealth. Does that trickle into that $247,000 versus $8?
Yeah, I think what it does is it supercharges the existing inequalities. So if you have a kind of economy that you could say is pro-dynastic wealth, pro-inherited wealth, well, that leaves a lot of people of color behind because they don't have a lot of wealth to start with. So that, I think those statistics about average wealth are kind of, we're getting more polarized, and the racial wealth divide is getting more supercharged.
Okay, so give us 2 or 3 things. And people should buy your book, Burned by Billionaires, and you can learn all the prescriptions for fixing this mess. Give us a couple right now, if you would, there, Chuck Collins.
Yeah, I think I think we need to support campaigns that solve everybody's problems, address these affordability issues with taxes on the wealthy. So, for instance, in California this week, they proposed an emergency wealth tax to fund the gap created by the Trump Medicaid cuts. So a one-time wealth tax on California's billionaires that will help 15 million people keep their health care benefits. Or taxing luxury real estate, something the city of Boston, the Boston City Council voted to do, and fund affordable housing. The state, through home rule, has blocked that. But that is a really good idea, and a lot of jurisdictions are taxing high-end real estate transfers, funding affordable housing. Tax private jet fuel, of all those jets going in and out of Hanscom Field and other places. They're not even paying their fair share of the airspace use. And fund green infrastructure and transportation for people on the ground. Those are the kinds of campaigns. Even the New York mayor has proposed, a modest income tax on millionaires in the city to fund free buses, city-owned grocery stores to address the affordability crisis. So those are exactly the right kinds of campaigns and things we need to be working on.
And by the way, for those who say that's not where the public is, the public in Massachusetts, despite the legislature's inaction, last year voted for a millionaire's tax, 4% surcharge, that is ensuring that education and infrastructure gets its money. We only have a minute left. I know the answer to this, and we've discussed it with you before. What was the decision like when you were a kid to decide to give away your inheritance, Chuck Collins? Most people say, what? What is he? What was that like?
I don't think I would have done it.
No, I'm serious. What was the thought process?
Well, I was in my mid-20s. You all know what that's like. But anyway, my dad said, bringing home the bacon had a different meaning in our family, which is true. I actually didn't think it was a good idea to have so much inherited wealth, both personally and as a society. And this is before these inequalities really kicked in, but there was just some way in which, I kind of wanted to make my own way. Now, that's a little bit of a delusion because when you grow up in a wealthy family, you have a huge wind at your back. But the reality is, I have to work for a living, and it's not the end of the world. So does everybody else, mostly. So I just didn't want to be part of a society where, and a situation where I was benefiting from 4 generations of inherited wealth.
Well, this is a great book, and the statistics in it are really shocking. I mean, that things have gotten so out of whack here, and we seem to blame, as one of the previous callers said, the poor person at the food bank instead of the billionaires that are running the country. That's an odd phenomenon, too, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, Chuck Collins,
terrific work, Chuck.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Marjorie. Take care, all.
You too.
We've been speaking with Chuck Collins, director of the program on inequality and the common good at the Institute for Policy Studies. His new book, and it's really filled with statistics and great information about what's going on here, is called Burned by Billionaires: How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives, including at the vets. Go to chuckcollinswrites.com/events for more information about upcoming book events. Coming up after this quick break, Harvard National Security expert Juliette Kain. We're going to talk to her about what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and also Hurricane Melissa. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Toads have taken over the world. The amphibians originated in South America, but they found their way to 6 continents. So what gave toads the edge?
They're highly toxic now. They have these big parotid glands on their necks. And that is actually an anti-predator device.
I'm Scott Detrow. More secrets behind toads' global domination on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4,
Here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Ballet, presenting George Balanchine's Jewels, showcasing 3 distinct styles of neoclassical ballet in one brilliant program. Opening November 6th at Citizens Opera House. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering 2 to 3 day courses and executive certificates for professionals seeking cutting-edge business insights on innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and more. Info at executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. Abbreviated introduction. You'll know her. Juliette Kayyem is joining us now for a couple of minutes. Juliette, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Well, glad to be here. Juliette, I want to start playing you a clip from today's New York Times, the Daily Podcast. This is a reporter translating the words of Hussein Khalid Auda. He's a former bodybuilder. He owned a gym, had a normal life. He lost his 4 young children. First, he lost his 7-year-old daughter, and then his mother and 2 siblings. Then he lost the other 3 children. These kids were 10, 7, 5, and 3. He's talking about going to pick their bodies up under the rubble and carrying them around in white body bags so he could bury them. Here he's explaining what happened when he returned to their bombed-out house looking for one of those missing bodies.
I went to the house and I started looking for my son Khalid's body. But I only managed to find part of his body. And then we eventually went to the cemetery and we did a small funeral. And we eventually buried all of them, Muhammad, Yusuf, and Khalid, in the same grave.
I was practically in tears coming in here this morning after listening to this. I recommended it to everybody, the New York Times, the Daily Podcast. But what is going on now in Israel with this ceasefire? Fragile.
Yeah, fragile. Fragile. Is it fragile? Israel claimed that Gaza broke the conditions of the peace deal. They specifically said that some remains were returned of a hostage that were not, in fact, the hostages' remains. There was also the killing of an Israeli soldier, although Hamas says that it wasn't them. I'm just relating what the parties are saying. Israel then says peace deal over and does a massive strike campaign that at last count, at least according to Palestinian authorities, killed over 104, 46 of them being children. Then Israel withdraws, or at least says, we're done now, having not addressed the issue that they were complaining about, and says the ceasefire is back on. That does not strike me as a ceasefire that one party can claim there's a breach, do 100 people dead, disproportionate to the breach, in my opinion. It's not like Hamas took more hostages and then say we're back on. So we'll see how this unfolds in the next 3 days. But this is horrifying.
You know, and Trump says they did the right thing. The word I'm so glad you used, disproportionate. Let's assume what the IDF, what Netanyahu is saying is true, that a soldier was killed. They did some scam around, which is horrible, around the remains of a returning hostage. The notion that the appropriate response is killing 100+ people, the majority of whom are women and kids. And there's a great piece in the New York Times the other day by Lydia Polgreen, who suggests that while some people like to question the numbers because it's the Palestinian Health Ministry, in fact, independent entities like the University of London that have gone door to door to 2,000 homes in Gaza say it's likely that the numbers are even higher than they currently are. So in your estimation, I know we're back to ceasefire allegedly.
Allegedly.
What's the future prospect with Netanyahu at controls and Hamas on the other side for a ceasefire and peace?
Well, I think that Netanyahu and Trump got out of the peace deal the politics of what they wanted. They wanted to be able to say that the hostages and that they were released, which is not insignificant. It is just, when you look now at Gaza, what's the next stage? They will allege that the next stage is some long-term reinvestment in Gaza with potentially, obviously not Hamas, some combination of Middle East and Gulf entities guiding it through a governance process. But and that's the sort of right wing talking point. But there are elements within Israel that we hear quite publicly that are talking about and continuing to raise and exclude the Palestinians from Gaza and then rebuild it essentially as an Israeli entity. And so in between, where we are now and what it looks like in 10 years, there's a lot of disagreement. So that's why people should not overestimate the peace deal. It gave important concessions to both parties, or include, and then I say end as well as the United States, but it's not solving the presumably day after, years after problem. And this breach by Hamas, followed by a disproportionate response by Netanyahu, does not bode well for the future. And Trump picks sides on this, by the way. So he was firmly behind Israel. So if you think about sort of our traditional role as a sort of safe haven between the two parties, that's not true.
Let me just say again, to read this Linda Polgren piece.
Yeah.
She argues that not only is the 68,000 figure low of deaths so far, but that when you factor in the additional Palestinians who will die from hunger and disease as a result of the starvation tactic of Netanyahu, at the end of this, the likelihood is up as close to 8% of the pre-October 7th population of Palestinians in Gaza will have died. It's just unimaginable.
The man whose voice we played at the beginning, his wife was so badly injured that she's paralyzed, she can't walk, all these things. But they can't take care of her because they're triaging people, and they're taking care of the people who are like inches from death. So she may have to wait or try to get out of the country, which is not going to happen.
Not possible, yeah.
Can we?
Yeah, we only have like 90 seconds left, but we want to not totally ignore it. What is well, I know it's going to go on for a while. What's the immediate after effect of Hurricane Melissa?
So obviously they're going to be in recovery. We're watching Hurricane Melissa travel to other islands, absolutely devastated in Jamaica. We don't have the traditional elements of the United States that help USAID that would flow resources, but the UN and other Caribbean and South American countries have committed resources. Interesting element to being ready. Jamaica last year anticipated something horrible happening, took out what's called a catastrophic bond insurance, CAT bond. It's a kind of insurance where if there's a trigger moment, and Melissa clearly would be it, Hurricane Melissa, they get a cash payment of $150 million, no questions asked. It's a new way of thinking about insurance. Is that you just basically have a metric. The leadership of Jamaica anticipated something like this. They'll get $150 million out, go everywhere, but that is a nice influx as everyone looks for them to rebuild.
I'd like to learn more about that when you're with us next week. Let's continue that insurance.
As you know, I love insurance.
I know you do. Well, I was unaware.
Well, it's going to lead us through this climate change. So a lot of my work focuses on that now. But Jamaica will get something because they monetized their risk. Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate you squeezing us in. We know you had a busy day. Thanks, Juliet.
Thank you, Juliet.
Bye.
We've been speaking with Juliet Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard University's School of Government. Her latest book, The Devil Never Sleeps, Learning to Live in an Age of Disasters. Coming up after this quick break for the news, Brandon Cardet-Hernandez used to be Senior Education Advisor to New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. Now he's a member of the Boston School Committee. He's going to talk to us about the literacy bill that is halfway through getting passed through the House, not the Senate yet, up on Beacon Hill, cell phone use in school, and much more. He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You can make a lasting impact on the station that has provided local news and conversation throughout the years by naming GBH in your estate plans. Be part of the legacy of public radio in New England. Learn more at wgbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Rocky Ruggiero, making art and history come to life, offering travel programs throughout Italy and online learning opportunities on Italian art and culture. Learn more at rockyruggiero.com.
And UMass Lowell, ranked #1 best value public university in Massachusetts by the Wall Street Journal and U.S. News and World Report. Learn more at uml.edu/rankings.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy. Ahead on Hour 3 of BPR, it's an education check-in with Brandon Cardet-Hernandez, a member of the Boston Public School Committee and a former education advisor to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. To talk about this literacy bill creeping its way through Beacon Hill, Mayor Wu's school address, and why he thinks, I'm talking about Brandon, thinks it's wrong to take cell phones from kids in classrooms.
I'm Marjorie Egan. That is my favorite day of the week. MI the a-hole day. Content warning for this one. Extreme pettiness. Okay, you're out to eat at a restaurant. The waiter asks how the food is. You and your dining partner both agree it's a little salty, but only one of you has the gall to tell the service staff about it. At what point is it appropriate to comment about the food or even send it back altogether? Restaurant food complainers and you, next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is on his way back to Washington, D.C. after a high-stakes meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The president spoke with reporters afterward and said he rated the meeting with Xi a 12 out of 10. Here's NPR's Deepa Shivaram.
Trump says he and Xi came to an agreement on a trade deal, but it hasn't been finalized just yet.
It was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made, too. There wasn't too much left out there.
The U.S. will lower tariffs on China from 57% to 47% because of Xi's commitment to reduce the flow of fentanyl, Trump says. China will also start repurchasing soybeans from the U.S. and stop the recent limit on rare earths exports that was announced a few weeks ago. Trump says he will visit China next April, and Xi will come to the U.S. after that. Deepa Shivaram, NPR News, Gyeongju, Korea.
Hurricane Melissa is approaching Bermuda as a Category 2 hurricane after tearing through Hispaniola, Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas. As one of the region's most powerful storms in the past 100 years, the storm has claimed at least 30 lives. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. A majority of the fatalities are reported in Haiti. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports that according to a rapid scientific analysis, climate change made such a disaster about 4 times more likely.
Scientists at Imperial College in the United Kingdom study the role of climate change in individual weather events, like heat waves and hurricanes. To study Hurricane Melissa, they used computer models to compare what actually happened to what would have happened if the planet was the temperature it used to be back in the 1950s. Their findings indicate climate change made it 4 times more likely a Category 5 storm would make landfall in Jamaica. In other words, this disaster would have been much less likely without global warming. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
A Senate confirmation hearing on President Trump's nominee for Surgeon General is on hold. NPR's Will Stone reports Dr. Casey Means is having a baby.
The Senate hearing was delayed because Casey Means went into labor. The hearing was already scheduled to happen virtually, so she didn't have to travel so late in her pregnancy. Means is currently in Hawaii. It's not clear now when the hearing will be rescheduled. Means is an ally of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but many in public health and medicine argue she's not qualified for the job. While she did go to Stanford Medical School, she never completed her training to become a surgeon. She gained popularity over the past year after publishing a book on diet and metabolic health and going on prominent podcasts, and her brother has been a close advisor to Secretary Kennedy. Will Stone, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. ICE officers have now detained 4 people in Brookline as part of President Trump's crackdown on immigration during his second term. The 4th person, a 28-year-old man, was detained on October 12th for failing to stop for an officer. Police say he was driving an unregistered motorcycle without a license. He was arrested and booked at the Brookline police station and then released on bail. Brookline police say ICE agents were waiting for the man outside of the police station and took him into custody as soon as he walked out. Police spokesperson says ICE has access to fingerprint records, and that's how they knew where he was. Brookline.news confirmed his identity through court records. He's 28-year-old Ienzi Alcantara Hugo. Students at Harvard University are pushing back big time against a new report that condemns grade inflation. These students say it misrepresents their academic experience and would add pressure to an already demanding campus environment. Crimson reports the 25-page report released Monday by the Office of Undergrad Education suggests that Harvard's grading system had become so lenient that it's no longer meaningfully distinguished between students. It warns that the way that it's done now fails to perform the key functions of grading and are damaging the academic culture of the college. In sports, the Bruins host the Sabres at the Garden tonight. Thursday night football, Baltimore is at Miami. Rain and lots of it today, heading into tonight, high in the mid-50s, cloudy, windy, and upper 50s tomorrow for Halloween. 55 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. This is hour number 3. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island is going to Zoom in. We're going to talk to him at next week at the library. Also, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Senator Ed Markey, will be with us on Tuesday, and the Governor will be with us on Wednesday. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We're joined now via Zoom by Brandon Cardet-Hernandez. He's the former education advisor to a guy who joined us a couple of days ago, former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio. These days, he, not Mayor de Blasio, but Brandon, runs the language learning company, Mrs. Wordsmith, in addition to being on the Boston School Committee and Mass Council for Latino Empowerment. First met Brandon in July during our segment, How Do You Two Know Each Other? Alongside his husband, former editor-in-chief for InStyle magazine and VP of brand experience for the Seaport. Brandon Cardet-Hernandez, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us. So let's start with some big news up on Beacon Hill, where actually the House, at least, finally passed something. Big controversy about our reading scores here in the Commonwealth, really bad. You know, places like Louisiana and Mississippi passing us over. But they've changed back. This bill would change back to a phonics-based way of learning to read. Is this a good idea?
Yes, it is a good idea. It was a good idea when we had phonics. It remains a good idea. And I think what we're seeing in Mississippi and Louisiana and the rate of growth shows that it's obviously more than just curriculum that changes outcomes for kids.
What do we know about Boston? It's unclear to me. We asked the mayor about this a while ago, and it seemed to be like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other kind of deal in Boston.
There's been work, obviously, to move towards what's being referred to as high quality instructional materials. And I think really successfully. But, there's more than just the curriculum that will get kids reading. What you see in Louisiana and in Mississippi is it's intense intervention, it's intense tutoring. It's a very limited number of curriculum so that it's much easier to train teachers around what they're doing and to create accountability around that. And then even more in a much more controversial way, they've made decisions to think about ending social promotion, meaning if a student is not reading on grade level by fourth grade, why continue moving them forward?
Let me tell you something. You just made Marjorie's month there, Brandon. Let me tell you.
Well, the reason it seems to me, and it is what I understand that there's controversy over whether if a child can't read by the end of third grade, they shouldn't go to fourth grade, which seems to be, to me at least, and I'm not an educator, a good thing for the kid because you get, if you can't read like your classmates and then you go to fourth grade surrounded by kids who can read, you can't. This is not very good for your education or your self-esteem or your sense of whatever. I mean, why is that even controversial?
I think I'll take two steps back, and you're absolutely right. When we talk about fourth grade, the reason why fourth grade is so important is because everything leading up to fourth grade is when you're learning to read. So like kids, if you've had kids, they're not doing big content acquisition before fourth grade. You're learning the skills to be able to read fluently, decode words, all that good stuff. After fourth grade, it starts getting content heavy. It's about facts. It's about building new knowledge. It's about really diving deeply into a text to make sense of the world and connections. You have to be a fluid reader to do that. At the same time, the argument is that when a student is held back, there is real data that shows that it is harder for them to find the motivation to keep going. And this is one of those both and moments. Mm-hmm. It is harmful to keep pushing kids forward in a system when they are failing. I think it has an emotional impact on how a kid feels about themselves and about schools. It creates a really complex dynamic in schools, right? You have high concentrations of vulnerable kids who have a lot of needs in one school because we keep moving kids forward. And then it stops the system from doing the hard work, which is to be truly accountable for kids to be reading on grade level by that time and to do everything possible teens that would get a kid doing that.
Okay.
You know, I want to say two more things about this, if I may, before we move on. Is one, don't get your hopes up, everybody. I mean, Marjorie and Brandon are quite happy about what happened in the House. The Senate, as always, will say nothing. We'll take a look at it. And my understanding is, and this is to both of you, there's no money attached to the state mandate, even if one supports it. So the question is, will all cities and towns be able to afford this? And that's the final question I wanted to ask you as a matter of policy, Brandon, is a lot of people, the Teachers Association, which Marjorie's not a big fan of, the Mass Association of School Committees and others, their objection to this, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was not so much to the content, but that it was a statewide mandate and that they believe that individual cities and towns should be able to have their own decision-making through their school and other officials. How do you feel about state mandates on local school systems like Boston's, for example?
Yeah, I think unfunded mandates are hard. I think what the real movement happens in implementation. And so there are certain things that we can agree on that are good for kids. And I think we do need sometimes top-down leadership to help move the systems in the right direction. At the same time, I really mean this. You have to hear this part. It isn't just curriculum. So like what's missing is you need a statewide coaching network. You need universal screeners so that you're tracking when kids are off task. You need robust summer programs. This is all the stuff you saw actually in Louisiana and Mississippi. If you want to talk about why Black and Latino students are performing higher in those places than they are in Massachusetts, it's because of the full experience that is completely dedicated to kids reading on grade level with precision, more than curriculum. It is a funding piece, but it did also happen top down.
Okay, speaking of top-down, when it's needed somehow, you are on the wrong side, in my opinion, and I think Marjorie's, of an issue we both are pretty invested in. And the Senate, this is another case where one branch has acted, the others, who knows. It was originally proposed by the Attorney General, bell-to-bell banning of cell phones in schools. A mere 70 to 90%, depending on the survey of teachers in schools, I know you know this, Brandon, support the ban. You're an outlier in this, and you've written about it too. Why have you suggested this is a bad idea?
So I think two things. I think one, because it focuses us on a single problem in a sea of much bigger issues. And I actually find it to be a distraction. You're talking about a system where, we're talking about 40% of Black and Latino students reading below grade level. Like, we're talking about the wrong thing. At the same time, you should know, when I was a principal, I did not allow cell phones in classrooms. We used Yonder pouches. We gave them to students between passing or at lunch. I think there's a sort of both and. And I also think in this moment with the sort of state of technology, my fear is that we are not teaching kids how to use cell phones to be productive.
But
happens when they get to college.
We could and should teach them how to use cell phones in a productive way, but that doesn't have to be having them there, because, to use your word, distraction from real issues, most experts think the phones in the hand of the kid during a school day are distraction from learning. So it seems to me that you'd be content if I'm asking, not saying, if there was an opportunity for kids to learn how this can be a productive rather than distracting tool, you'd be okay with a ban like you were when you were principal, yes?
100%. And
okay.
But it would require adults to understand the power of what a cell phone can do, whether that's an AI note taker or taking photos of slides on a screen or being able to translate directly for a multilingual learner.
Okay.
There's some powerful stuff that I just don't want us to walk away from.
You know, I don't want to get, Jim just asked about cell phones, but before we moved on, before I had a chance to ask you this question, because you've been in education for a long time, you were an aide to de Blasio in New York City, you worked with him there. How did it get to the point where all across the country, schools were teaching reading the wrong way? And scores were going down and down and down, and whole groups of kids didn't learn. I mean, I don't get how that escaped kind of a alarm bell going off. Because we used to teach phonics. That was the way we learned phonics.
I will say this with credit to sort of the ivory towers in education. I think the folks really ringing the alarm bells were university systems and researchers, just really trying to get folks to pay attention. Like, this is not how brains actually develop reading skills. And I think at the same time, actually back to Jim's earlier question, without real oversight, you are leaving cities and towns to make decisions on their own. I think sometimes it's a mixed bag of things. It's big business in education. It's curriculum distributors selling into cities and towns with mixed messages or faulty research. It's a lot of stuff, but what's really happening is it was no one at the top saying, this is really how we do this thing. It's evidence-based, it's research-based, and now go and do it. But you need some of that.
You mentioned also the wraparound that they were doing in Louisiana and Mississippi, both very, very poor states. We are a very rich state. We can't do a wraparound here in Massachusetts?
There's no reason, right? And again, I think the numbers around Mississippi and Louisiana are so fascinating, right? The Mississippi climbed from 49th in literacy to number 9, the highest ranked state in Hispanic fourth grade readers, and the number 3rd state for Black readers, right? Like, the growth level is so high. And you're right, it was a focused investment. And I actually think they've really been able to curve the waste of spending. So folks are not spending on the wrong things, and they're not spending on the wrong solutions. It's an agreed upon strategy of how you will get kids to this finish line.
So are we going to get that if this bill does pass in Beacon Hill, or are we? Or not?
Many of the ideas are in that bill. It's, to Jim's point, it is an unfunded mandate, but I think it's probably the most crucial aspect of every city and town school system. So again, it's like the mandate is there, and that has to be where budgets align.
All right, let me ask you one last question. I'm not an educator, but we all know phonics, right? It's the boy, beep, 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 cheat, cease. I don't understand. I think everybody learned this. Why is it such a problem to teach it when this is how you learn to read? This is how your children learn to read. I mean, my youngest kid is just 30. She learned phonics. This is a fairly recent disaster. How much do you need to spend to have teachers teach C sounds a certain way and a D sounds a certain way?
It's more complicated than that, but there is real training around the sequence of how letters blend together to make sounds, right? From phonemes to digraphs and long vowels. And listen, English is complicated. You do have to train people. You also have two things happening. It is not always the most fun to teach kids phonics. It is much easier to just immerse in reading and use these cueing strategies that were being done and use pictures to help identify words. It is a much more sort of light and playful literacy experience. There is a science to teaching reading. And so you have to train people in that science, and you have to make sure they know that skill. And I would also say you probably have a lot of educators in the system who at this point didn't learn to read that way. And so there is a relearning for themselves as well. And like most of us, we don't really remember how we learned. We're just reading now. And so that early part is very different.
All right. I diminished the difficulty involved there, Jim, apparently.
No, it's clear that Marjorie wants to talk about phonics until the Senate votes on it.
Well,
I told the same.
Because I have a 4-year-old that's going to be in school, and I would like her to learn the right way how to read.
So,
I get it.
Brandon Cardet-Hernandez, Boston School Committee, a whole bunch of other credentials, but that's the current most, well, it's not real, they're all most relevant. How'd you vote on the ballot question to eliminate MCAS as a graduation requirement?
I appreciate you asking me. I was deeply against it.
Okay, so was Marjorie. I voted for it. It passed roughly. No, just so we know where everybody comes from. So after it was after it was abolished by a 60-40 vote, a task force has been put together that is supposed to come up with recommendations. And I think December 1st is the date. There's supposed to be a report. Education leaders in the state announced the other day, very preliminarily, that what they're thinking about, I'll read the line from the Globe, is recommending end-of-course state-administered tests for high schoolers. Now, the voters have spoken. Those MCAS graduation requirements are gone, even if you and 40% of the voters thought they were a good idea. Is it not accurate to say this is an end run attempting to do the exact same thing that the voters decided they didn't want done? High-stakes, state-administered tests for high schoolers? I mean, it is. Is it not, Brandon?
I don't know. There's other things that are being discussed, but Jim, can I just tell you this part?
Yes,
You're talking about 1% of students in recent years who didn't graduate because they couldn't pass the MCAS. The MCAS is a 10th grade competency exam. It is not to determine if you even have skills to graduate high school. It is measuring 10th grade content levels. And here's the other kicker. You still have MCAS. You need it for federal accountability.
No, we do.
And
yeah, but you're doing,
the
with
kids
all
are
due
still
respect,
taking it.
You're doing exactly what Marjorie is doing, is relitigating something that has already been determined. My question to you, by the way, I want some standard. I just didn't think that was the right standard, and we're not going to debate this, Marjorie, again now, because we did debate it. What I'm saying is it seems to me this is I'm sure well-intended, I think, effort to accomplish the exact same thing, just in a different outfit. So, you agree with me, right?
But there's also other things on the table. They're talking about portfolios and some sort of projects at the end of the year.
That's exactly where I was going. Tell me what you would embrace as long as you honor the spirit of the law that was passed by the voters of Massachusetts. What would portfolios do it? Marjorie thinks they don't because they're too arbitrary, too subjective, and they would differ from teacher to teacher, school to school, district to district. So what would work? Is there anything?
I think it's really tough, Jim. I think no matter how you slice it, if you don't agree that there's a single measurement of competency, then anything after that is arbitrary. If you decide it's a passing grade in an English class, there's grade inflation. If you decide it's a portfolio, it looks different. It scares me, just particularly given the rest of the developed world and how they think of competency, that we in Massachusetts think that a test would somehow be too high stakes to determine if a student can complete graduation. I know I'm relitigating. But
no, actually,
I'm going to let you. No matter how you slice it, you're going to get to something.
Okay, I'm going to let you relitigate because I can't believe I never asked Marjorie this question. I'll ask both of you as no voters on that question. I used to do ballot campaigns, and after the voters spoke, the legislature had no problem totally disregarding what the voters had just said and doing whatever the hell they wanted, arguing that we understand the issue better. Should the legislature have the courage, from your perspective, to say to the public, you made a mistake? And
yes,
frankly, we know better than you know. And for once, we're going to have the courage to be transparent and honest with you. We're going to reimpose MCAS as a graduation requirement. Would you like, Marjorie says yes. Would you like that, Brandon?
I think we can find, if MCAS was the issue, then let's find another assessment that feels lower stakes, that maybe has more writing in it, that maybe has more open response, that can still be measured. But listen, I wake up every morning thinking about equity gaps, thinking about the gap between white students in Massachusetts and Black and brown students. Like, that is what keeps me up at night. And if you do not have a measure to assess it, we begin to start to pretend everything's okay and not really pay attention to the fact that we are operating two states in one.
Yeah. You know, you've mentioned a couple times the gap that Deval Patrick, when he was in our studio every month, would talk about this constantly and how important that gap between white students, Latino students, Black students was. And correct me if I'm wrong, the gap from pre-pandemic to now, while everybody is behind where they were pre-COVID, Latino and Black students are even further behind. Do you have a fix in mind that would address this better than the last couple of decades has?
Yeah, Jim, I think, just to say this too, because I think it really matters, it's a 27-point gap in Massachusetts between Black and Hispanic students and white and Asian students. 27% point gap. We need precision. You need similar experiences. You need high quality curriculum. You need teachers to be trained and coached in that curriculum. You need intervention support wrapped around a kid. And you need clear measurements that are shared and allow people to have the conversation we're having today, to be able to authentically say, where 27-point gap exists, and here's how we're going to narrow it. Without it, with just like portfolios and grades, we're able to look away from the problem that's in front of us.
Well, the other reason is because politicians can run around talking about Massachusetts having the best schools in the nation. And it's a bunch of baloney. The rich towns have the best schools. The rich kids with the rich parents get the best education. They're not the best schools in the poor towns. And so they can escape. So, oh, well, we have the best schools in the nation. How many times have you heard politicians say that?
I know that.
Non-stop. The rich, that's it, the rich towns. Do you think we should have 14 weeks vacation a year? I think we should have more longer school time. I think 1:30, 2 o'clock, is that when they get out in Boston? Is it still 1:30 at most of the schools?
It depends on when you start, but let's say a 6-hour, 20-minute day.
Yeah, okay. Is that enough?
Here's what I think. I think it has to be based on data. So again, not to keep talking about Mississippi and Louisiana, but what they did is when a student was behind and they tested them throughout the year, then there was additional hours of instruction. Then summer programming was focused on literacy. The reason the retention, when they were holding kids back if they were not meeting it, the reason that number continues to drop is because the supports are so focused around literacy. It's like, this is what we do. We are making sure every kid can read. And if you have the data and then the precision, time becomes focused on who needs more time, where, and when.
Now, you may not be aware, Brandon, that Jim won the President's Award from the Massachusetts Teachers Association.
It's like 30 years ago, Marjorie.
And he's still carrying their water after 30 years. They did a very effective job. So that's why he's standing in the way of all these kind of real reforms that we need in the public schools. Do you have anything to say?
I support a longer school day.
You do?
As long as the teachers are paid for it. Yes, I do.
Or we have teachers from Teach for America that come in, and they come in after school and they help the kids do the tutoring. Or we have kids from Boston College or BU coming in after school to help the kids with the tutoring. But I don't think getting out of school at 1:30 and having 14 weeks vacation is getting us very far in Boston. Where are you on that? What did you say for the longer day? I forget. Jim is annoying me so much.
I think it's kid dependent. And listen, I was in a union. I was in my teachers union. I was in my principals union. we are struggling to attract teachers to this workforce.
Yeah.
Like, there are staffing shortages across the country. We have to make this a desirable job. That's about work conditions and pay, and also respecting the hard work that they do. It's also about training them so that they leave the day feeling like I'm expert in something. So it is about their professional development. I think, again, the sort of answer around a long day or a shorter day, it's kid dependent.
Okay.
Like, if a kid is struggling to read or access their grade level math, you have to extend the day for them. They need more time on task.
If you believe in grades, you passed Marjorie's test.
That's right.
With soaring grades,
We
except for the last question.
Merit pay for teachers, which I think would be a great idea.
Luckily, we're out of time. Thank you very
out
much.
of time.
Hey, Brandon, it's great to see you again.
Thank you very
Thanks
much
so
for being
really
with us.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Next time we'll talk merit pay.
Okay. We will. We've been speaking via Zoom with Branton Cardet-Hernandez, former education advisor, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. He also runs these days the language learning company Mrs. Wordsworth, in addition to being on the Boston School Committee and the Mass Council for Latino Empowerment. We first met him in
Wordsmith, not Wordsworth.
Wordsmith, sorry.
It's okay.
Wordsmith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody else runs Mrs. Wordsworth, by the way. It's another. It's his cousin. His cousin runs that.
Sorry, Brandon. Wordsmith, Mrs. Wordsmith. We first met him in July, as Jim said, when he was on our show before. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us.
Good to see you, Brandon.
Brandon. Coming up after this quick break, when you're out to eat and not totally 100% satisfied with your meal, how much of a stink are you allowed to make before you become this week's A-hole? We are talking about eating out protocol. Weigh in next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Toads have taken over the world. The amphibians originated in South America, but they found their way to 6 continents. So what gave toads the edge?
They're highly toxic now. They have these big parotid glands on their necks. And that is actually an anti-predator device.
I'm Scott Detrow. More secrets behind toads' global domination on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion strategy recommendations to organizations that align with their culture and business priorities. Learn more at inclusionitsworthit.com. Global View Communications. Inclusion. It's worth it. And Boston Ballet, presenting George Balanchine's Jewels, showcasing 3 distinct styles of neoclassical ballet in one brilliant program. Opening November 6th at Citizens Opera House. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We will be back at the library tomorrow. We hope you join us. And Sheldon, Whitehouse, the United States Senator from Rhode Island, will zoom in. We have a lot of the good guests, music, etc. Next week on Tuesday, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, and Senator Markey. On Wednesday, the governor will join us there. Before I get to the am I the a-hole thing, I have to say, our breaks are only a minute. You have no idea what goes on during these breaks. We were only off the air for 60 seconds. First thing that happens is Marjorie, after we finish with Brandon, says to me, I still don't believe you really believe the way you voted on that ballot question. You can't possibly. So that was first.
Yeah.
Tell me you really believe. That was first. And the reason she lost her focus on that is because she spent the other 40 seconds going through the garbage, went out to the coffee machine, and all over the floor where her papers are
lost some of my
displayed
stuff.
to find her notes for this
I lose
segment.
lots of things.
And she's using mine. So it is time for Am I the A-hole? An experience I think everybody's gone through at some point. So you're out to eat at a restaurant. Your meal arrives and you notice immediately something is a little bit off. It's not so bad that you're going to make you, I don't know, sick or send it back. Maybe it's a tad cold, maybe a little bit over or undercooked, maybe a little too salty, too peppery for your delicate little taste buds. Well, welcome to a Kitchen Critics edition of Am I the A-hole? This week's setup, here it is from Reddit. A couple is out to eat and orders, listen to this, an $80 plate of paella.
Yeah, must have
You ever
been
had an $80 plate of paella?
No, have you?
I love paella, but never $80.
Okay.
One bite in, the girlfriend notices that whoever cooked it used she thinks, about 20% more salt than necessary. She finishes it anyway, that's key. and balances her bites with a swig of water. Okay? When the couple's server comes by and asks the obligatory, "How is everything?" the girlfriend responds honestly. She says, "I found it a bit salty." Her boyfriend is mortified by this, and after the server leaves, says that the girlfriend should have softened the blow, saying something like this: "The paella is really good, but it's a little salty." And it is true that, according to her, the boyfriend repeated his criticism of the girlfriend a mere 20 times. Okay.
20 times.
So the number is 877-301-8970. And call or text there. Is there something to be said for holding your tongue when the meal wasn't bad enough to send back, but not perfect? And if not for the server, then for your anxious partner? Here is the question at 877-301-8970. Who is the a-hole? The woman who decided she should not temper her remarks about the meal by saying it was good, but, by the way, she ate the whole damn thing? Or is the a-hole the boyfriend who has relentlessly criticized her for essentially being honest with the server? The number is 877-301-8970. So who's the a-hole
Well,
here,
no,
Margaret?
if you're talking about my losing things, what you were doing in this next segment is working out your childhood trauma from having your father criticize everybody.
Well, I've said this before. No, it's true. My father, for like 5 years in his life, made a lot of money. I mean, other than that, he made a decent amount of money. And while he was making a lot of money, we'd go out. He lived in New York. I lived in Philadelphia with my mother. And when I went to New York, we'd always go out to expensive places. And I mean this totally sincerely. Every bottle of wine he ever ordered, he sent back the first one because it showed what a big shot.
After it was poured?
No, when when they pour it, you say, "How is it?" And instead of 99% of people, even if it's not perfect to your taste,
it's delicious.
You say it's fine or whatever. He thought he'd show he's a big shot. It did scar me. And in all seriousness, I often had to apologize to the server or the sommelier or whatever. So I am scarred. That's true.
Okay.
Having said that, while I'm a believer in honesty, I mean, really, you order an $80 entree, you eat the whole damn thing. If it was so salty, then don't eat it, send it back. The least you can do to the server, by the way, who didn't make it, say it was really quite good. However, it was a little bit salty. So the a-hole is clearly this woman. And I agree. I know what you're going to say. I'm going to preempt it. The boyfriend shouldn't have mentioned his criticism 20 times.
That was
he should have
much.
mentioned it only like 15 times. And that would have been plenty. Who is the a-hole, Marjorie?
I think,
on one hand, on the other hand.
I think the right person to mention it to, especially since you ate it all, was to the maitre d'.
Oh, so you agree she's the a-hole?
I think she didn't have to say it to the wait person.
Server.
I just remember when I was waiting on tables, it would always crack me up. You come over to the table and you say, how is everything? And they'd say, well, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. And I thought, wow, but you've
put
eaten
it away.
all. You've eaten it all. You polished off that entire steak. It was terrible. It was terrible. But people would do that sometimes, wanting to get a gift certificate or wanting to get another steak
another
or something
meal
like that. It was
after
a scam.
they eat the whole thing?
It was a scam, yeah.
877-301-8970. So both of us, this is a rare moment, we agree, both of us, for different reasons, think the girlfriend was the a-hole for being brutally honest rather than tempering her honesty with a little bit of a compliment. So the server, who had nothing to do with the saltiness, didn't feel bad.
Here's a couple of texts.
Yeah.
Seriously, why make a disappointing situation worse? Just order another cocktail and pipe down.
I agree with that, by the way.
There's really no reason for negative comments. Okay. 877-301-8970 is the number. This is basically about restaurant etiquette.
It is.
If you have a bad meal, what do? Now, if it's really bad, I think you can send it back, don't you think?
Let me give you an example.
Just eat a bad meal?
Can I give you an example in another setting?
Suppose the chicken. This is one of my great fears in life. You order chicken and it's not cooked all the way through.
Well, that's a
you know
problem.
What I mean?
If it's raw chicken.
Yeah, that's bad.
Let's take it out of the restaurant.
Or steak. If you order a steak and it's not done well enough.
Well, then you send it back and ask them to do more.
But suppose you order it like medium rare and it comes out
well done,
medium well.
Then you give it to Donald Trump. He likes it well done. Now, let me just bring this so people can understand this in context. We're talking about in a restaurant. How about in real life?
Yeah.
Marjorie will often say to me after the show, I can't believe I screwed that up. I can't believe I screwed that up. And I can't believe that I screwed that up. I could say, like this woman, you're right, that was a disaster. Instead, what I always do is I say, it was fabulous. You were great. Maybe you could have done that little thing just a little bit differently. That's the way you deal with people. You don't punch them in the face because they made an unintended mistake like too much salt. Do you understand or you don't?
Well, I do. So when I really screwed up, you're just trying to not say that, so I won't get upset.
No, but I'm tired of saying it every day. It's what it's only so many days in a row. No, Marjorie, by the way, is, in my opinion, the second finest talk show host.
Second finest talk show
I've
host.
ever known,
Okay,
actually.
I'll take that. That's good enough coming from you.
Robert in Middleton, who's the a-hole? Welcome to the show.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Robert, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Wow, thank you.
I just felt compelled to weigh in on this because as a restaurant owner, you want to know that your food is prepared well. And if nobody says anything, you're going to keep adding too much salt. So I think she was absolutely right in commenting. Perhaps she could have done it nicer, yes. But I think the boyfriend's a jerk for giving her a hard time.
So wait a second. So do you show up at do you currently own a restaurant?
I do not own a restaurant.
Oh, you did? You don't? You did or you didn't?
I never did, and I do not.
Well, what about, I'm sorry, I thought you said you did. How about Marjorie's perspective?
I'm just being sympathetic with restaurant owners.
But how about Marjorie's thing? Instead of saying it to the server, who is not at fault, how about going to the maitre d' or the owner, if he or she or they are around, and saying it to them rather than the poor server?
Well, I think if you badger the server or complain or be miserable, that's one thing. But I think by just saying, I'd like you to tell the chef that I think personally the food is a little too salty. The server can go back and say, either this jerk of a customer complained about the food, or this is the third time I've heard this. Maybe there's something here that your food's a little too salty.
Wow. Well, that's a fabulous first call, Robert. Thank you. Make a second one soon. Thank you for listening and calling, etc.
Okay, Brian from Paxton says, I was in the restaurant business for 35 years. I'm just glad she mentioned it inside the restaurant instead of going home and writing a horrible Yelp review at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then a couple more textures.
By the way, there is nothing more sadistic.
I know.
Unless you think you were intentionally treated badly by a server or a maitre d', to post something on Yelp is the sickest, most sadistic. It's a business killer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just say
Remember
it.
that restaurant in Beacon Hill? There was a big back and forth when they got the nasty Yelp review, and then the owner fought back, and it went back.
I thought it was in Brookline, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Whatever it was. Yeah, I do remember that thing.
There's a big back and forth. Okay, they're both a-holes in their different ways in this dinner. They are also both a-holes for ordering an $80 entree.
I can't, $80 paella
That seems
is really a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Okay, Clayton and, I'm sorry, you had one more?
No, go ahead with Clayton.
Clayton and Saugus, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey guys, thank you so much. Very quickly, thank you for what you're doing. You guys are gems and a huge resource.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing.
That's wonderful.
So I am going to provisionally come down on the side of the girlfriend, only because this is a really delicate thing. You would have had to play a recording of her tone of voice, of the way she said it.
Good point.
And there's a way of saying in a very diplomatic and low-key way, hey, you know what? Wonderful dinner. This was great. If you could just pass along to the kitchen, this is a little high on the salt for whatever that's worth. The boyfriend should not be badgering the hell. I mean, he could have said, geez, did you really have to do that? But, there's no point in hammering her. So it's a tough call. And I will also just leave you with this, somewhat related. I was once with a friend at Goodwill, and we get up to the cash register, and he starts to haggle on the price. And I turned to him and I said, do you not understand that we're in a place called Goodwill?
I know.
So really, I think for the restaurateur who said, hey, we need feed, it's good feedback, but it really depends on the delivery.
I think you're right.
I am so glad you called for that reason.
Thanks.
On the delivery. And the other point is that when you see people at Walgreens or CVS haggling, fighting with the person that's behind the register, as if they've got something to do with what the prices or at CVS or what was empty from the shelves at CVS.
So you're agreeing with the boyfriend?
No,
what Clayton just said.
I think it's a tone thing.
While Clayton was saying it was a tone thing, he also went on to say exactly what the boyfriend was saying. You cushion it by saying it was a very good meal.
Right.
But she didn't do it. It was a very good meal.
She didn't do it.
And by the way, again, I repeat, I think a much more responsible position than saying the boyfriend shouldn't badger, like Clayton said, is maybe 10 times he could have said it. instead of 20. But it was a badgering-worthy, I think, behavior on the part of the girlfriend.
Okay, here's another text. I had lemon ricotta pancakes. That's something else I can make really well. Is
You
ricotta
told me
pancakes.
that. I know.
Yeah. I got
Why
the
is
recipe
that?
because I love pancakes and they're wonderful. Oops, it disappeared. Oh no, here it is. I had lemon ricotta pancakes at a lovely spot in Newport. One pancake was burned on the bottom, and the chef made sure the burned pancake was upside down so I couldn't see it, Jim.
That's what I would do.
But she sent it back anyway. I had to wait for a new order while my pal ate. They did not discount or gift card me, even though they agreed it was burned.
Wow.
What an outrage.
Zoe is asking, why have we, your coworkers, never had a ricotta pancake if it's such a fine
Well, you have to
thing
kind of make them. I have to have you over my house and cook them right there. You have to serve them when they're hot.
Why? I know you like them, but you like a lot of food that you can't make. Why are you able to make that? Because your cooking skills, I think you'd agree, are somewhat limited.
It's always a 50-50 shot with the pancakes. Sometimes they come out really well, and sometimes they don't. But I always like to try. I think it's a Mark Bittman recipe from the New York Times.
New York Times food
yeah.
guy,
Oh my God, are they great?
Did I tell you, by the way, luckily your memory about certain things is weak, and I feel I have to disclose this. It is true. When I was a busboy at Grossinger's, I have told you the story, which you say this can't be true. A woman was driving me out of my mind. She was, when you're at Grossinger's, which was a resort in the Catskills, you'd stay for a weekend or a week, so you got to know a customer, which was either a good thing or a horrible thing. This woman was horrible. And she told me on day one that she was on a salt-free diet, and I dealt with that, and I made sure the chefs and all those people knew it. After she gave me crap for the first 5 days, tell me this was not an appropriate response by me, I started not telling the chef that she was on a salt-free diet. Now, isn't that a reasonable response?
You could have killed her.
If someone's not being nice to you?
She could have gone into cardiac arrest right at your table, Jim.
She could have?
Yeah, she could have. You might have killed her.
Oh.
How would you feel then? Maybe you wouldn't feel so bad.
You think it was disproportionate response? Is that what you heard? Okay, that's a true story. And
I do.
She was really a big a-hole. Nancy in New Hampshire, you are next. Who is the a-hole there, Nancy? Hello.
Hi. Love you both.
Thanks.
I'm a sustainer, even though I just retired. This is so important to me.
Thank you. That's really good of you.
Years ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I love it.
Thanks.
And you guys. Years and years ago, in New York State, went to a steak restaurant, Ground, I think, with a group of friends. And server comes over. The guy ordered lobster in a steak restaurant. First mistake, not on the coast.
Exactly.
The server comes over. And she says, how is it? And he said, this could gag a maggot.
Oh, God.
It was so many years ago, but I'm right there. I can still picture it. That's an a-hole. Okay.
That is a fine, and I would remember that too. That is
How
an
did
excellent.
it go from there?
Good
Did
point.
they
Good
take back
question.
the maggot-gagging lobster to the kitchen, or what?
I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember.
You're
I mean,
traumatized.
honestly, this was in the 70s.
Yeah,
But
okay.
Well,
How crazy.
What a fabulous story, Nancy. Thanks for sharing it. That is a good one. By the way, we have a Curb Your Enthusiasm sound.
Oh, I
right here.
forgot the
about
sound.
this. In this clip, Larry's giving a ride home to a waitress who inadvertently got fired after complaining that she had gotten sweat in Larry's soup. Here it is. Here it is.
Well, I appreciate you driving me home.
Yeah, of course. Sorry about the whole incident. I mean,
Firing.
I didn't certainly mean to get you fired.
You could have just eaten the soup.
Really? With your sweat in the soup? I won't even eat my own sweat. Huh? One drop of sweat is like plutonium. You would eat my sweat if I dripped sweat in your soup?
I don't know it, but to be polite, it's like, I don't know.
You'd eat your sweat to be polite?
Thanks. It's such a Larry David kind of experience. 877-301-8970 is the number. And if you just tuned in, here's the deal. The girlfriend and boyfriend order an $80 paella, which is quite something. Most relevantly, is that a word?
I think so.
Okay. She eats the whole day. I mean, she eats her whole thing. It's gone totally. After it's gone, she said, when the waitress says the obligatory, how was it? The server, it might have been a waiter, a server. She says it was too salty. The boyfriend gets really upset and he says, why couldn't you, if you had to say that, say, well, it was a good meal, but it was too salty, rather than just essentially punching the server in the face with your words. And then he did say it a bunch of times. So the question, who's the a-hole? The woman for being so blatantly, brutally direct with the server who had nothing to do with the salt, or the boyfriend who was berating her over her behavior? What are you laughing about?
This is a good one. I recently ordered from the menu the fish and chips, a standard by which I determine how good a restaurant is. The server asked if I wanted coleslaw. I said yes. When the meal arrived, the plate had a healthy amount of fish and a good portion of flavorful coleslaw. When I asked where the chips were, and the French fries, and was told I had ordered the coleslaw instead, I pointed out that the menu said fish and chips, to which the server replied, "Many people are confused by this," and just walked away.
Oh. Then anything is fair game. Would you not agree
Can
at
you
that
believe
point?
that? That is wild. That is wild.
Let's go to Jennifer in Rhode Island. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. I think that the boyfriend is the a-hole, and I think people are assuming where that woman was coming from. And from my perspective, I am very concerned about food waste, and I would never say this, and because I know they would throw away that meal. So I would also agree with the caller who said it's important to give that feedback to the kitchen, because I think they would want to know that. And she was asked, how was the meal? So she was answering honestly. And I think the boyfriend was embarrassed by her, and it was more about his own embarrassment that he kept sort of berating her. He could have said it once and been done.
Well, that I hadn't thought of, by the way. That, by the repetition, may indicate that it was all about him, rather than all about his concern for the server. That is a very insightful point there. Thank you.
It's important to point out in this very important discussion, Jim, that it was early on that the waitress came over and said, "How's your paella?" Paella.
But she ate the whole damn thing. Who cares?
Well, she couldn't have eaten the whole damn thing at that point.
Well, wait a second. If it was too salty, why did she eat the whole thing?
Because she did eat the whole thing. Didn't you see? She chugged down a lot of water to get down the paella. That's why
But she did eat the whole thing. If it was too salty, then why did she eat the whole thing? She just hadn't eaten it all at that point. Is that your point? What is your point?
She had not eaten it all. When the time that the waitress came over and asked, "How's your paella?" She'd only had a few bites. And she probably said,
what did she do after she said that? Did she eat the whole thing or no?
She said, "We ended up finishing the paella anyway, because even though the food was very salty, it was flavorful. I just had to chug a lot of water as I ate."
So if she
as
says,
we're waiting for the bill, the boyfriend said, "You should have said that to the waitress."
So exactly, why didn't she say exactly that? It was flavorful, but it was too salty.
Well, I suppose, I'm thinking now, maybe the waitress should have said, "If it's too salty, I can take it back."
Let me ask you, can we make this personal for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume you decided to make something other than, and bring it in.
My lemon ricotta pancakes?
No, lemon ricotta pancakes
fish,
or tuna fish
my two big
or
dishes,
prune chicken.
Roast vegetables.
That's the only thing. Oh, roast vegetables. So there are
I'm
four
really good at
things you
those.
can make.
Yep.
Let's assume you brought in a fifth thing, which I think we'd agree, I don't mean this unkindly, would be horrible. Would you agree? So, would you prefer I say, did you like it, Jim? I would say, no, actually, it's horrible. Or would you prefer I say, it's actually quite flavorful. It's not exactly what I would like, but it's really flavorful. Which would you prefer?
I would prefer that you tell me the truth, because my self-worth is not tied up in my roasted vegetables or my tuna fish.
Well, can I
Thank
tell you
God.
one thing? When you brought in a couple of months ago a sliced boiled potato on a piece of white bread, that was brutal. That was brutal and an embarrassment to you and your family.
You liked my roasted vegetables, though, didn't you?
I love the
And you
roasted-
like my tuna fish, don't you?
I love the tuna fish.
So there you go.
Let's go to Patrick and
I've
Melrose.
worked on those at tuna-like for 30 years.
By the way, your tuna fish, and let me say this, I've said it, is not just the best. It's like there's yours and
That's
there's
right.
almost no second. Tuna fish salad, we should say.
You have to get
out of a
you
can.
have to get the oil
and the water.
or the water out, particularly the water, because sometimes if there's a little oil, it's not so bad.
Very
the
sad.
water is deadly.
Sorry, Patrick, welcome to the show. Hi.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Long-time listener, second-time caller,
Love
as a matter
it.
of fact.
Hello.
So first off, Jim, don't listen to anything Marjorie says. Go with the second option and say that they're flavorful and not to your taste.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Keep going.
Truth is a trap. Truth is a trap. We all know that. So that was the first thing.
What's the second thing?
I just wanted to say I totally agree with the idea of ordering a lobster fish dish at a steak restaurant. Like that's a mistake. But from the restaurant's point of view, if it's on the menu, you should stand behind it. And if you'll permit me, because are you guys broadcasting from the library today?
Tomorrow, not today.
Tomorrow. Oh, okay. You're in the Nan and Bill Harris today?
Yes.
Yes, actually,
we are. The Nan and Bill Harris studio.
Wonderful
people.
Patrons of GBH.
I'm telling you, I pay attention.
Yeah.
So the Stoneham Library is underwater financially, you may have heard?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's unbelievable. A suburb of Boston has a library that might go under, which is crazy. So there's a concert on Sunday night, and it's a fundraiser for that. So
tell
I
us.
To get the word out. I might be hijacking your show.
No, do it. Absolutely do it. Go ahead.
Sunday night at the library?
It's not at the library. It's at the Greater Boston Stage in Stoneham.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
What's the website?
They've been so kind to give us that space to host the event. So come one, come all. There's a seating capacity of 300. We want to pack the house.
Patrick, what's the website if people want to participate?
Stoneham Public Library events.
Great. Wait, you mean Google that? Google that, and you'll find the thing.
Yeah, if you Google the Stoneham Public Library and look at the events item on their website, it should be the first one because it's coming right up.
We wish you good luck on Sunday night.
Thanks you.
For calling and thanks for doing that.
Listen to this. This is a very evolved person, Harry from Salem.
What do you say?
You go out to dinner, you show gratitude, you have fun, you never complain, you stay respectful. If you had a bad experience, and just don't go back.
Well, can I say one thing
How
about
that?
You know me very well. One of the things that has been my calling card in life is I never complain. Would you agree?
I would
no matter
agree.
what happens,
it's amazing.
I decide
I've known you for like 30 years, Jim.
Never complain.
You've never complained.
Even if I've had a rough go,
Isn't it amazing?
I decide it is more important
Jim perseveres
that others around me
through thick and thin.
be happy.
The ups and downs. Wouldn't you agree with that, Jared?
What world did I just enter?
Exactly. He can't sit. The reason he's standing is all my crap is on the chair. So I got a lot of stuff.
I'm like,
our boss brought us GBH news jackets because Marjorie, you didn't hear, was we wearing a BUR jacket yesterday?
Well,
that's
okay.
hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
That's because I lost my jacket. I left it at the library, actually.
How did you get a BUR jacket?
Well, years
friend
ago,
of ours.
I had a
It's a
friend that
long
used to
story.
work there, and she
Okay, let's not.
she had extra ones, and she
Okay,
gave me
fine.
one, and I didn't realize it had
Okay,
the logo on the back.
Thanks.
And,
No, it's true. The logo is only like 12 inches high. Who would recognize that it says that? No, you're right, obviously.
But that's one thing. There were about 14 things on this chair.
What do you think the woman who thought the paella was too salty should have said? Oh, you weren't listening?
You can't really do that. I mean, is that something you really have to send back? I think the only
She didn't
thing...
send it back. She said it was too salty, rather than what the boyfriend said, which is say it was really good, but it was a little salty.
And she drank 2 gallons of water and ate it anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking not so much.
Do you ever send anything back?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that's fair to do is if I like steak medium rare. So if it comes
well done,
that's okay to send back. And
Yeah.
I think I've done that.
And then they have to make you a whole new steak, which takes like 15 minutes.
Trump not only
Yeah.
eats well done steak, but with ketchup. I mean, really? Is that all you need to know? Don't mean to
And a
offend
side
any of you
of
out there.
McDonald's.
Side of McDonald's,
Yeah, and he
right.
drinks Diet Cokes all
Or a
day.
taco. Hey, what are you doing on the show?
So we're going to be talking to Casey Sword, the president and CEO of the Bach Center, because because the Wang Theater, as part of the Bach Center, is turning 100 this year.
God, is it turning 100?
100, yeah.
Wow.
By the way, I know we don't identify people by who they happen to be with. His wife sang on a show the night before she was performing with the Boston Pops, and
That's
she
right.
was spectacular. Please tell him she was spectacular.
I will share that. I'm sure he's listening right now. And then we'll speak with Elaine Chalino, who is the former Paris bureau chief of the New York Times. She is going to weigh in on the Louvre and the latest developments because she's also just written this book, coincidentally, Adventures in the Louvre. So she's gone behind the scenes. She knows all about the security. She'll talk to her about that. And then Manual Cinema, which is presenting with Arts Emerson, has The Fourth Witch, which is their sort of puppetry, projection, cinematic twist on Macbeth.
Wow.
Good show.
It is
Another
a good show.
Fun show, yeah.
They're generally fairly good shows.
We try. We aim to please.
Okay.
Well, thanks for your inhospitable welcome here.
Sorry, got a lot of coats.
Yeah, it's
and
a lot of
things there.
debris
What can I
over
say?
there.
It's not debris.
It is totally debris.
You are
Okay.
really. That's like saying it's too salty.
Well, it's a lot of stuff.
Can you neaten up
It's
a
lot of
little,
debris.
Jim? I wouldn't call
It's
it
the
debris.
big thing, frankly, is my coat and my lunchbox.
Yeah.
Or whatever you
What's
call
in the
those
plastic
things.
bag, though?
What's the plastic bag, Jim?
Plastic bag is, I'm not allowed to say on the air. It's a jacket that is very similar to the one that Marjorie wasn't supposed to have worn that was
Okay.
given to me by that unnamed organization.
All right.
Which was very nice of them, even though I don't contribute. But
Keep
I,
up.
bye.
I
Okay,
respect
thank
them
you, Jared.
greatly.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we will be back at the library
Yes.
with Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He's going to zoom in. Callie Crossley's from GBH, of course. Rapper Nick Shea for Live Music Friday. Chocolate Sommelier, that's how you say it, Victoria Kitchuk, and media maven Sue O'Connell. Our crew: Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conlon, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Mira Donaldson, Brad Lewis, engineer John the Claw Parker, and Jamie Bologna, our executive producer. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is on right after us, and you're listening to 89.7 GBH. Jim, I've never heard you complain. Have a lovely day.
It's not part of my MO.
Not part
See
of your
you
MO.
tomorrow.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Celebrity Series of Boston, presenting Tony Award winner Kelly O'Hara for an evening of song and storytelling, live on November 4th at Symphony Hall. Tickets and more at celebrityseries.org.
It's all smoke and no mirrors. Get to know Texan pitmasters and what it takes to make the renowned Top 50 barbecue list. Don't miss the State of Barbecue, a Texas monthly special. Tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at